because it seems like for me, stress alone without bad eating habits will cause a flare-up at some point. And bad eating habits without stress will cause a flare-up at some point. It's just when you do them together, that some point becomes a lot shorter.
Okay.
So instead of it waiting, let's say I'm just stressed out. If it's 3 weeks, it becomes a week and a half. But if I'm just stressed out for a long period of time, my food and training is everything is very dialed in, then it could be a month or 2 months.
Hello and welcome. Today we have Najib with us and Asil is here. Najib is my friend, former coach, not active coach right now, but still active, enthusiastic CrossFitter, let's say. Correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Retired. Coach retired.
Okay, retired coach. And it's very funny. He's also friend of Asil's friend.
Correct.
Right? And Asil just came with this story a couple of weeks ago. Last week, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he told me, there's this girl and she had certain conditions and like it would be a great story, but she's not really comfortable sharing it. And I was like, well, that's fine. Let's see what we can do. And there's like, but she has a friend and obviously you know him. His name is Najib. I was like, yeah, of course. I was like, oh shit, of course, Najib. He has a Crohn disease, right? Yeah. So that can be a very, very interesting story as well. And the whole life around it, whole fitness around it. And then you were like, no, I think it's the guy who broke his neck. I was like, well, that's true as well. And that's a story.
They fit in together. Like it's one is because of the other. Hopefully, we'll dive deeper into that later on in the conversation.
Oh, so it's connected.
They are connected. Yeah. The break wouldn't have happened if I wasn't as a side effects of some of the medications that I was on that like reduce the bone density that you have. But yeah, we can dive into that later on.
Guys, do you hear some bass?
Yes. Sounds like an AC. Oh, there we go.
No, that was my cable here. Okay. Anyway, let's go.
That's why you shouldn't move it.
That's why you shouldn't touch it. Yeah, as I instructed everybody.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, absolutely.
I'll try this. Okay. Yeah, I just push it in.
Perfect.
All right, let's go. So, what is Crohn disease and how you, got it, developed it, how it happened?
All right. So, the definition of Crohn's disease for the layman person, and I'll consider myself as well a layman person, is an autoimmune disease where the immune system attacks or fails to defend your colon, specifically your colon. So originally I got it when I was 16, 17. I started to develop symptoms. I mean, they're graphic symptoms. I'm more than happy to discuss them, but there are some symptoms around the bathroom and how you go to the bathroom and so on and so forth. And naturally, as a teenage guy, you're not going to talk to anybody about it. So I didn't mention anything for the first 2 years.
Was there some bleeding?
So you bleed, and there's a lot of mucus as well that goes into that, and it lacks control. In the first couple of years, I was able to control it a little bit, and by control I mean like when I go to the bathroom or like be able to hold or something like that. But I was in high school at the time, and teenage boy, you're not gonna declare, hey, I have this issue, I'm bleeding in the bathroom or whatever it is. And about 18, somebody went into the bathroom after me, and they kind of realized it looks like a massacre, it looks like a horror movie. And they came out and they sat us down, like, what's going on? I said, that's from me. So that was initially the discovery process. Like I had to get caught.
So you were not even discussing it with family?
No. I didn't tell anybody.
And who discovered it?
My mom.
Your mom.
Yeah. So she went into the bathroom to clean or something along those lines, and she kind of saw some residual blood.
How long was it going for until she found out?
About a year and a half, 2 years almost. So I remember we figured it out on my graduation year, and it had started. I did IB, so it had started around year 1 of IB, International Baccalaureate. So that was a fun couple of years. But yeah, I mean, it's a good discovery process. You figure something out, you see it, you don't know what to say, you're self-conscious. you're a teenage boy, you have a bunch of guy friends, you're not gonna disclose, oh, I need to go to the bathroom. You don't go to the bathroom in school because you don't want anybody to like listen or hear what's going on. So yeah, that was a fun discovery process. And initially I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis / Crohn's disease. So one of them, and don't quote me off of memory, one of them is where it only attacks your colon, and the other is one where it attacks your digestive system as a whole. You could get them in
ulcerative
colitis.
Colitis. Yeah. Not sure about the pronunciation, but that's the one where it actually starts in the small intestine. And main area is the transition between small and large intestine. Where there you can have a pretty solid malnutrition as well, because the absorption of all the nutrients is still happening also at the end of the small intestine. Intestine. So
you said a disease. So is that sort of like you said attack? Can you please explain more?
So it's part of an umbrella of diseases described as autoimmune diseases. Now. Autoimmune diseases differ by kind, but on a fundamental perspective, they are where your immune system attacks your body in a specific area.
Okay.
Now, to disclose, before we dive deeper into it, by no means am I a medical professional. This is by no means advice to anybody. And again, definitions, there are people that are highly qualified with degrees that can diagnose and describe. But
autoimmune disease is, very simply put, a disease where your immune system is attacking your own body for not really known reason. Even diabetes type 1 is autoimmune. It's where your body destroyed the cells that are creating the insulin. That's why diabetes 1 is insulin dependent. Yeah, diabetes 2 can be to a certain degree regulated because it's developed. That's a chronic behavioral disease mostly, but diabetes 1 is like you can't do much and you're usually born with it. Or you develop it very early. Yeah.
And there's a myriad of different diseases under the umbrella. I think the extreme on the spectrum would be lupus, which is when your autoimmune is everywhere. So, I mean, Crohn's is a blessing compared to that. And everybody says we're struggling, but then there's always a case that's 10 times worse. So that was a very interesting journey. This journey of discovery.
Okay. And you discovered it. I assume your mom took you to a doctor.
Yeah, forced me to go to the doctor. So of course, again, it being in a sensitive area, they need to discover it. They need to do a colonoscopy, blood tests, stool tests. Again, as a hormonal teenager, you're not going to be very like, oh, let's do this. It's not something that is very comfortable.
It's not something you share on the Instagram.
Yeah, it's not something you share on Instagram. Life is rosy on Instagram. You keep it happy over there. But yeah, I mean, we did the tests. They kind of diagnosed us either this or that, and they didn't zoom into Crohn's until about 5 years ago. They're like, okay, now we can like narrow it down to Crohn's.
Oh, so that was for, let's say, 5 years. You really didn't had specific diagnosis.
Exactly. Yeah, it was either ulcerative colitis or Crohn's.
And within those 5 years, what kind of treatment were you on?
So we had a couple different treatments. Initially, they proposed. This is complete science because I'm trying to remember the right words. Again, they proposed different treatments, and the ones that we took was about 6 months of corticosteroids going into about 2 years of immunosuppressants. So
you take corticosteroids?
So I'd take 6 months of corticosteroids. There's one hell of a journey. Can I say hell?
You can say absolutely anything, and the more precise you describe it, the better. So,
the more it reaches.
Yeah. This is family friendly, so family swearing, everything, yeah?
Family swearing.
Yeah. So corticosteroids, what it does to you? Or in your case, what it did to you?
So the advantages of it is it's very effective very fast. So when you are having, you're losing a lot of blood, you're losing a lot of like fluids on a regular basis, you're unable to control yourself, which means you need to be in the vicinity of a clean bathroom at all times. It allows you to get about your day-to-day life. Now, corticosteroids has, like any other medication, a list of disadvantages. For myself, it kind of amplifies the state of mental being that I'm in. So if I am energetic, I am the best employee you can have on corticosteroids because I'll work 20 hours a day. The beauty of corticosteroids is you don't feel the effects of working 20 hours a day until you're off of corticosteroids.
Okay.
Surprise.
Yeah.
You've been overworking and under recovering. So that was the kind of effects. And again, if you're going through some emotional trauma throughout your life, if you're having corticosteroids at that time, it can amplify that. So
it was your, let's say, emotional reactions, and your perception of reality, maybe
100%,
altering.
100%. It not necessarily alters it; it just amplifies it. So, if you're going through a breakup, or if you're, you're very excited about a certain job, you could be. And I remember this at GoBox, with the gym we used to work at. At GoBox, I was on corticosteroids for a period of time, and it was Ramadan, which is the time at now. And Ramadan at boxes and gyms is very interesting because you start early for Western people that want to get in and hustle, and you finish late for the local population that wants to come in after iftar. Mm-hmm. And we were understaffed at the moment, going through a management change, so we were putting in hours. And it was good because I was on corticosteroids that I could put in 6 a.m. till 11 p.m. at night, and then go home, get a bite, sleep for 4 hours, and come back in the next morning. But I do remember collapsing about 7 or 8 weeks after that. I was getting off of corticosteroids. My body started to realize what had gone on. And I collapsed, and I was crying for whatever reason. And my boss at the time, Megan May, she sent me home. She was like, "Go home, rest, take a couple of days off. You need it." So we did that. That was an interesting journey.
She knew about your condition?
She did, yeah. She was very supportive, and we can go down that journey as well. Dr. Bo, good friend of ours as well, helped me navigate the lifestyle perspective of all of this journey. So he was a big influencer.
Before we keep going on this, can you describe more what it means to have the Crohn and what the corticosteroids does to stop it? Like what were the symptoms on a daily basis? Like your toilet regime was irregular, uncontrollable, or what is going on there?
All right. So I can't describe, for my lack of knowledge, what corticosteroids does to allow Crohn's symptoms to reduce. But what I can describe is what Crohn's symptoms I had. So irregular and frequent visits to the bathroom. In many cases, uncontrollable. So I've had a couple accidents driving. That was a fun experience.
Fun now.
Fun in hindsight. Never fun when you go through the experience itself. But you're driving down, you're stuck in traffic.
And
things happen.
Yeah, you can't just always go to the side.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I'm not going to be the guy sitting on the pavement in squat position, no matter how good my squat position is. So yeah, I mean, infrequent, you lose a lot of blood, and by nature you start to become nauseous, you start to become lethargic, you want to puke, you don't want to eat a lot.
And this is happening because basically your immune system destroyed the inside of your colon.
Yes.
And that means that there is basically an open wound.
In a sense, yes.
In the colon.
It's like scratching it almost.
And that's where you're losing the blood, losing the liquids generally. So dehydration
on a regular basis. I mean, it also kind of naturally, your body, everything's connected, right? So you start to sweat a little bit more, you're more stressed out, but you're stressed. It's a vicious cycle. It's one of those things we talked about earlier, stress can cause the symptoms to start, but also because you're stressed out about the symptoms, it amplifies the symptoms. Symptoms. So once they start, because you're freaked out, and especially if you're not secure about it, if you're not comfortable talking to people about it, you start to go into this like rabbit hole of I'm stressed out about my symptoms, but my stress got me these symptoms, so I need to reduce my stress. It's a fun journey, to say the least.
Like try to focus on reducing your stress, right? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stress out about reducing stress.
Yeah. Okay, and the corticosteroids, like, did they help to heal it, or what is the? You don't need to go like into specific physiology, just generally how it helped you.
So corticosteroids allow for a reduced time for your symptoms to go away. That's like the easiest way for you to describe it. When your life is severely impacted by these symptoms, your corticosteroids is a fast way to get back to normal life, right? Now, what happens on a physiological perspective, I have no idea.
Well, corticosteroids are just extremely strong anti-inflammatories.
100%.
Yeah, so probably reducing the inflammation, I would say. Yeah. But there is the downside of it, right?
100%. I mean, nothing comes all upside, no downside in life, generally speaking. And again, naturally, you want to get back and up and running, especially as you get older in life, where you can't rely on family funding and all that stuff. You need to go to work. You need to be able to get up and get out, and the world is a very understanding place, but at the same time, it's a very not understanding place in the sense that, you still need to earn an income. You still need to get after it and hustle.
So you're studying through this time.
So we can go into my study journey as well. That was fun. So I initially went to London to study sports science in Kingston University, and I didn't have a good handle on my symptoms. So my symptoms got progressively worse, and then they went to the worst they've ever been.
So this was when you were like, what, 20?
I was 18, 19 at the time. So I graduated from high school in Dubai, and I went to Kingston University. Again, still self-conscious, still unable to talk about the stuff. So I didn't seek help in London, regardless how experienced these people are. And, the symptoms got progressively worse. And to deal with them, I went back to my comfortable place, which is home. So I left London in 2013, about September. Sorry, I left London about April time, came to Dubai, started my treatment again.
And how long have you been there then? Like from September?
I've been there about September to April.
Okay, September to April, and it wasn't going well.
It wasn't going well. No, I wasn't able to control my symptoms. I started not going to class. Of course, I'm not going to tell my teachers about this. I'm still kind of figuring things out myself. I loved the year. The experience was amazing. Learned a lot from it. But I wanted to go back to my safe place and heal and recover over there, around family and support mechanism. So a support mechanism is very important for anybody going through a health condition, right? People that you can speak to, and people that are more tolerant than the general population, right? And the general population is very, intolerant of what you have. You're working, you need to get after it.
It's tolerant to a point.
It's tolerant to a point, right?
Yeah.
I came back. I took up a job between semesters. So as the new academic year would start, I took up a job at a coffee company. I was selling coffee. That was a lot of fun. And going into the next cycle of the academic year, I enrolled in American University in Dubai.
Was some kind of credit you got?
No, British system to the US system does not transfer.
Okay, so basically that
Start
year
from zero.
was great experience.
But that's it.
So
I was a transfer. I went to UD, and I was picking up CrossFit at the same time, and started to did my level 1. And going into that, I went into Gold Box. I met my old friend, and currently he's like family, like you described, our mutual friend, Dr. Bo. And we started there as a member-coach relationship. He was helping me navigate the lifestyle aspect of Crohn's disease, how we can navigate food, how we can navigate stress, and so on and so forth. And as you become more obsessed with fitness and sport of fitness, I picked up a part-time job as an assistant coach over there. So I'd go to class, I'd go coach, I'd go to class, I'd go back to coaching, I'd train, go back to class. It was
No
that kind of-
stressful. No stressful at all, huh?
I mean, you live with your parents. You're funded. A little bit extra money on the side from coaching. It was actually a very relaxing time, and the first year of university is generally, I'm not gonna say easy, but it's generally low stress. It's intro life, yeah. So people are still socializing and
And
stuff.
what were you studying?
Finance.
Finance.
Sports science, there weren't a lot of options in sports science at the time in the UAE, or in the region as well. So if I wanted to study sports science, I would have had to go to Jordan, my home country. In the UAE, the options were very limited. So I had I come from a business family, there was an emphasis on finance. So I went and studied finance for 2.5 years, I think.
And that you finished?
No, Goldbox offered me a job.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't
sure.
say no to that.
Well, I can tell you how you can say no.
Well,
I've seen it many times.
well, let's say this. At the time, we had a very good community. My manager Meg was a great influence on my life. Bo was a great influence on my life. We had a good coaching team and a good community. So it was a very nice place to start off a sports career.
Until the management changed.
Until the management changed.
Yeah.
You mentioned that the doctor was helping you. What's his actual specialty?
So gastroenterology.
Okay.
And I really
that's
hope
where the knowledge comes from.
Absolutely. So she specializes in that area.
I think Assel was asking about Bo.
Oh, Bo.
Yes.
You're asking about Dr. Bo.
Yes.
Bo is a doctor of physiotherapy. Now,
But how did
He was a head coach
he was the head coach at
at the Gold Box that time.
And why do you call him a doctor?
because he has a PhD.
Fair enough. And okay, and he was into physiotherapy.
So he's a physiotherapist by trade, yeah.
Okay, but he had a good knowledge about how to maneuver around chronic diseases.
100%. So
Okay.
this is part of the process, right? So chronic diseases. If I have Crohn's and let's say I'm subject A, subject B also has Crohn's, the treatment and the lifestyle could be completely different to get you where you want, right? So whatever was successful with me will differ drastically with another Crohn's patient.
So if you have some knowledge of nutrition, some knowledge of physiology, how body works, what nutrients are, and so on, like I'm not saying it's easy, but it's trial and error.
Yeah.
Like you have some theory, like, okay, well, let's focus on reducing this group of food, group of nutrition income for whatever your reason behind it is. You try it for a week, for 2, and then you see, does it work? Okay, let's keep and let's maybe add some other stuff. Let's tweak it even more. If it doesn't work, you will know very soon, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
some kind of like guidance, not saying it's easy because you need to have that vast knowledge behind it. But after that, it's really just on the individual level, trial and error. Does it work? Let's keep it. Doesn't, discard it.
So at no point did he, it's very important, at no point did he say, you need to do this. It was a lot of shooting ideas.
Yeah.
What do you think about doing this? Let's attempt this. And he designed a check-in every morning. And it was a wonderful way of kind of learning to listen to your body. And it was, how do you feel energy-wise when you get out of bed? What color is your pee?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What color is your pee? And what state is your poop at? And we started there.
You mean state, consistency, color, if there is blood?
Exactly. Color, frequency, controlled, uncontrolled, gassy, so on and so forth. And we did that for a few months. And after that, we started to shoot about ideas about diet. So we decided to go with an elimination diet. So we took everything that could impact it negatively out of my diet. And I ate very bland food for about 4 or 5 months. And the idea of that, and Paolo, you have a lot of experience, you can correct me if I'm wrong. The idea of that is to get your body into a state where it's hypersensitive to new stimuluses. So, white rice, no salt, like very minimal spices, no gluten, no eggs, no dairy, no legumes, and no nightshades. So if anybody doesn't know, nightshades is a category of vegetables and fruits. Usually they have a dark skin, so tomatoes is a nightshades, eggplant is a nightshades, and me and
How do you spell it?
nightshades.
Oh, nightshades.
Yeah,
Okay,
nightshades.
okay.
Never heard that before.
First time hearing about
So
this category.
what does nightshade food does to you at night? Obviously.
I think the word night comes from the look of the vegetable. You can categorize multiple vegetables into a group by describing them as nightshades. So they have colors like purple and red and so on and so forth. Now, what does it do to you? I can't say this on a podcast. I actually don't know, but they are described to irritate some people.
Okay.
So, not everybody is gluten intolerant. Not everybody is lactose intolerant. We have different genetics. We come from different backgrounds. But as I do, our culture has a lot of tomato in it.
Absolutely. This is what I was about to ask because I thought...
Don't take my tomato.
No, because I thought the term nightshade means that you can't eat it after a certain time before bedtime, but it looks like it's a whole day. It's just the color, basically.
Yeah, we need to realize that, even though our moms told us differently, but not all vegetable is necessarily good for you.
Good food,
especially with such a serious condition. And plants, generally, they have a lot of self-defense mechanisms in them. So sometimes, and it might be even the time of the ripeness, like when you pick it up, that it will have a higher protective things
mechanism
in it, some molecules, whatever it is, and it can be, for example, to block your digestion, because that's their self-protection, right? If they will release something that you will not digest well, then you won't eat it again because you won't feel good after.
Absolutely.
However, exactly how Najib was saying, if you do it over time and since you are a kid, you'll become desensitized to all this, and that's why the elimination diet works, because you basically go to bottom bare absolute minimum of nutrients you need from ideally same source all the time, and you keep doing that until you basically clean the system out of all these other stuff.
You stabilize it.
And then introducing one at a time. You eliminate everything, and you can't be like, okay, so now I will have eggs and then milk and then you have one thing. You see what happens, how it feels, and then you go, okay, keeping, discarding, and that's how it probably was with you, right?
Yeah, and it built in on that checklist that we had. Nice. We did the checklist for 4 months as we did the elimination diet, and then when we started to put food groups back in, we went through a more comprehensive checklist. The checklist now started to include how do you feel after breakfast, how do you feel after lunch. We put eggs in first. I realized as a young kid that used to love the gym, I used to eat 12 eggs every morning, boiled.
Whoa.
Boiled eggs, bland, no salt, no pepper. I used to eat it before I go to school. And we realized that that's not a great idea.
Well, maybe you didn't need an elimination diet to know.
For that, 100%. But again,
was it the quantity or was it the eggs itself?
So the disclosure is, for me, eggs don't work.
Okay.
I love eggs, so I will have eggs these days on weekends, very rarely, maybe once a month.
Okay.
That's just because I love the food, right? And I don't want to be in a position where
I get disturbed from yolk now, which I discovered only a few years ago. I discovered I'm lactose intolerant, and I discovered that egg yolk hurts me. It just makes me uncomfortable at all in different manners. So,
out of curiosity, how did you discover that?
I stopped having egg in the morning, which I always used to have it at least 2-3 times a week. And I'm like, why am I more comfortable today?
Actually, it can be also because if you have, and that's dose dependent for different people, but if you have a heavy protein food, which egg is heavy, and 12 eggs in the morning, okay, you definitely triggering your digestion to a point that you going more towards parasympathetic nervous system. So you shutting your activity down because your body is focusing on recovery. And that's why I can't have because again, elimination, but not in a meaning of avoiding certain foods, but avoiding certain foods at certain times of a day. I can't have protein through the day if I know I will be doing something after, because it just switches me off. And like some, light thing, like some maybe programming, something. But if I would have to coach or train or do some hard thinking, like I couldn't do a protein meal and record a podcast. I would fall asleep. I would be just like, what the fuck is going on?
You're sitting with Paolo,
and he's just
Well, that was happening to you as well, right? Just falling asleep anytime, anywhere.
So the first time I ever got in trouble with it was from our old manager. I was sleeping on the floor of the gym between classes, and you get Crohn's, you get into the habit of being able to sleep anywhere. You can be in a concert hall and just pass out because you're so tired. But we go back to like the food and the eggs thing.
Yeah, but you asked me, how did I discover it?
Yeah.
What was the intention of the question?
I'm just curious. People discover things very, very differently. So
okay. So just curious.
Yeah, just out of curiosity.
For me, I discovered that milk wasn't good for me, and I have to go with the lactose free. Is because in the office I was always having the milk with the coffee with the cereals in the morning at the pantry, and then I'm like, I'm just disturbed. I feel like I'm bloated. I've got gases or whatever it is. And then one day there was this lactose-free milk, and I put it, and it just felt totally different. So I went and did a test, and I'm like, wow, I'm actually not supposed to have.
So you did test after you already knew anyway.
But by testing the milk only, so I just realized I should be much more, let's say, avoiding milk with it.
And cheese is fine?
Cheese, well, I don't eat cheese that much, to be honest. It's not part of my diet. I mean, I rarely add it in a sandwich or something. But I mean, even now, if I'm eating cereals, I put milk. No milk. I'm actually mixing my protein powder in water only. And just pouring it over the cereals. I'm just having, because it's chocolate flavor. For breakfast. I know you don't like protein for breakfast.
Just asking.
But it works for me. I feel good.
Look,
I feel fine.
If it works for you, I just know that I can kind of regulate my activity level through food. Because that's what we always say, like, eat for what is coming. If you're going to be very active, eat carbs. If you're going to be chilling, okay, have your protein, have higher amount of fats. Right?
When you work from home, you're definitely chilling. But for the last 2 years,
off for half the day.
I work from home, at home.
But you don't sit at a desk and type and
respond
to people on emails.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you were able to kind of make a list of food groups, that works for you.
Yeah, 100%. We got to a point where we had a good understanding of what works, what doesn't work. Of course, I mean, I didn't bring this up earlier on, but smoking had to go. I used to be a smoker. Smoker was the first thing to go. Smoking was the first thing the doctor even said, but listen, you stop smoking or else.
Like autoimmune disease.
It should be common sense. Yeah. And, we got to a point where now I have a good understanding of the food that I eat. If I want to enjoy myself for a day, yes, I do have non-complementary foods. But, it's a very, very rare situation.
Okay, so eating outside wasn't a big thing?
Now, if you talk to my friends, they'll all tell you that I love to eat out. I'm a huge fan of it. But I'm also very cognizant of how I feel after. So I will have times where I am incredibly strict. And I've developed this reputation in the family. Like, you have gatherings and, everybody comes together to eat. And Najib is the guy that has a meal on his own, sitting down. At the same time, they get very surprised when I eat half a tray of kunafa.
Do you know what
because I love sweets.
It's just sugar level would be like 100%.
I assumed,
It's kind of this dirt that we have in our culture. It comes out and they pour liquid sugar over it.
Yeah, well, there wasn't enough before. Right?
Yeah, of course. And they drain it. So, I mean, I love it. It's great. But it's not good for me.
But it's nice that the family is very supportive in this. I mean, they make sure that you're having the meal that you actually feel comfortable with and the rest of it, which you said earlier.
I mean,
support system around.
Support system is very important, and the nuclear family, nano family is more important. The mom, dad, if you have a wife, your kids, they need to be cognizant of what you're going through. The external family, it took a lot of time for me to be comfortable enough to explain what was going on. So originally the excuse was, I'm a bodybuilder and I need to be, fit.
And the jokes will start.
Oh, he's the guy, he doesn't want to eat with everybody, and he's too big and tough, and so on and so forth. And I started the gym when I was 13.
Funny as you're saying this, like I had it actually opposite. Like I didn't really need it to be doing any specific diet, but I was on a keto.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, when I said that, everybody thought I'm sick or something going on.
What is this ketogenic?
If you're not sick, why would you be on the diet?
Yeah, I mean, where we come from, or at least where I come from, guys don't go on diets,
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's a diets are for women.
You're awkward.
Yeah, diets are for women. No, diets are not for guys. There's
belly is an indication of happiness.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we have
wealth.
Wealth and happiness.
So we have
so much money, so much food. So much food means so much happiness.
You can afford to be fat.
You can afford to be fat. Yeah, we have a saying in our culture: a man without a belly is like a house without furniture. It's just empty inside.
It's a kind of a way to justify why did they have a belly?
Well,
I'm sure
obviously
the person that came out with it.
Obviously, the rule came after the fact, right?
The rule fits the case, not the case fits the rule. But yeah, that was an interesting process. I mean, going back to our like nutritional topic, we had that journey, and it took a year and some change. Okay. It wasn't slow. It wasn't do this test and you will figure it out. It took a year of miserable eating habits. That was a lot of fun. But it's been 7 years now since that elimination diet. I'm still following the same general ground rules.
Okay.
And how do you feel?
So basically the baseline is the same, and now you tweak it.
Yeah.
Depends how it goes.
Now it's just kind of you go through such stressful times at work. I mean, you have an office job. Things go a little bit looser. You're putting in a little bit more hours than you'd usually do, so on and so forth. But the second symptoms start to show, I can catch it early enough to be like, okay, now I have to go to the extreme opposite side where everything's dialed in very, very, very well, and get me back to the right position. Psychological
part is a huge part, yeah.
Oof, we're joining the other side of it. So, we haven't discussed this yet. Paolo, you don't know this about me, but I had like severe anger issues when I was a kid. You have a lot of stress and don't know how to express it, and so you push it into anger. So I did a lot of combat sports, a lot of contact sports. Played rugby, played American football, did MMA, and naturally got more and more aggressive, and not knowing how to express emotions. You're either very happy or very angry. So of course, bottling things up can increase that likelihood of you getting a flare-up. So stress in its form, whether you be very, very hyper, very happy, and very stressed out and very anxious, or very angry and very anxious for whatever reasons, and a lot around anxiety and stress. And you could be in a very calm environment, and you're just the type of person that's very like stressed out. So if you realize when I walked in today, I was sweating. There's no reason for me to be at that like peak level of stress and anxiety. But you learn to deal with it, and it's a big, big, big factor that contributes to Crohn's disease. I know that for a fact. When my life has a drastic shift that is prolonged, and I'm at this level of not low stress, not high stress, it's just in between and consistent.
No highs and lows.
No highs and lows, just consistent stress.
When you say prolonged, what that would be? Like if you avoid prolonged stress, like what is your buffer time when like you can still save it before the flare-up will start?
So usually, depending on the intensity of the stress that I have, like looking back at this is not a measurement where I have like a specific time. There's a lot of variables that play into it, but I would say 2 weeks plus, consistent higher level, mid-range level stress. There's a lot of other factors. I stress eat. I love picking up if I'm really stressed out and it's like 8-9 p.m. at night and I didn't have a meal yet. I'll go pick up a pint of Ben & Jerry's. Love ice cream. Ben & Jerry's, yeah. Ben and Jerry's peanut butter, I'll crush it in a sitting.
Okay
That's not okay. No, no, absolutely not. Like if I'm stressed out, this is my way of like letting it out.
Okay, so then the question is, how much of the contributor to eventual flare-up might be the actual stress, and how much is it what you do when you're stressed? Food.
Tough question.
Food regarding,
yeah,
you know?
Tough question. I think they're equally contributing, but this is just my opinion. I say they equally contribute because it seems like for me, stress alone without bad eating habits will cause a flare-up at some point. And bad eating habits without stress will cause a flare-up at some point. It's just when you do them together, that some point becomes a lot shorter.
Okay.
So instead of it waiting, let's say I'm just stressed out. If it's 3 weeks, it becomes a week and a half, where I can't control it anymore. You know, symptoms they start to escalate a little bit quicker, so on and so forth. But if I'm just stressed out for a long period of time, my food and training is everything is very dialed in, then it could be a month or 2 months, and vice versa.
So, when you were saying before that, like there is a flare up, there is a time you have kind of to save it.
Yeah.
When there is a build up to it, is it normal that the Crohn is a cyclical, or is it because of the behavior or it's becoming cyclical because sometimes stress is higher, so it will become, then you really need to take care of yourself, so you reduce the stress, the flare up is going away, and then again and again and again?
So it's one of those things where your doctor tells you there are patients that have a Crohn's flare-up and they won't have it for another 10, 15 years.
Wow.
And there are people that, unfortunately for them, and I mean, all my sympathies goes out for them, they're never able to control it.
Okay, so it's a constant thing.
Constant there. They're not able to control it either because they don't have the awareness of how to. Ownership is a big thing when you have that disease, right? You need to take ownership of, listen, I brought this on myself somehow, sometimes it's genetic, but 9 times out of 10, even if it's genetic, there is a contributing factor in your
Genetic
lifestyle.
is only potential.
It's potential, yeah. So you take ownership of it and you say, these are the things that I need to do. I need to invest time, effort, money into being able to control it, right? And if people don't have that ownership, they tend to go into a cycle of, becoming closed, going into their home, maybe not even having a career, they're scared, there's fear. That just becomes...
Do you have any, data or information about how much is Crohn eventually connected with mental issues?
I've read a lot of things. The thing is about the world we live in today is you have this insane access of information, right? Google everything. You can go into a wormhole of... Funny story, I didn't know what Crohn's disease was till 5 years after I was diagnosed. Like, I was so scared to Google it that I was in a case where I'll just go to the doctor, do whatever you want, just don't tell me. You go into a wormhole of contradicting studies, of contradicting cases, and if you don't have a filter, either that be external or within yourself, to say this is why this would work. Sometimes both studies, both case studies, and both data sets can be correct. The cases are different, the variables are different, the objective of the study is different. To answer your question, do I have data to explain why? No. Anything I say today is essentially based on my experience. When you do have Crohn's, we come from an Arab family, that world travels fast. You start to find out that your cousin's mother's friend in Australia has Crohn's, and so on and so forth. And, the family suddenly becomes a web of different Crohn's patients within their friends. And, the moms will talk together and like, my son's going through this and my husband's going through that. And so you start to understand that, okay, stress is a big factor. It may not be the only factor, but for them, these case studies, these people, these individuals, stress was a big part of being able to control yourself, control your symptoms. Of course, there's medical intervention as well. part of that support mechanism that we talked about earlier.
How long have you been without a flare-up? Like longest period?
For the longest period, that was about 2.5 years.
Oh, nice.
Right now...
But you were like really dialed in with the diet at the time.
100%. Okay, so this came after the system that you guys set for yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So the 2.5, 3 years were 3 years of like great, everything was dialed in, great support mechanism. You know, life was at its peak.
Okay.
Again, life is cyclical like everything else. You know, you have peaks and valleys, your job, nothing ever lasts. I love that, love that situation. No bad situation ever lasts and no good situation ever lasts, right? So if your job's on point, your life is on point, your support mechanism is on point, it's not going to last. If you're in the dump and, you know, health is bad and life is bad, it's not going to last. So at that time, everything was great. You know, my food was great, my intake was great, my life was great. So it lasted for 3 years. But I say 2.5, 3 years off the top of my head. But that's answering your question.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no bleeding, there's
no symptoms at all for about 2.5 years, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no symptoms. It came after a very, very severe flare-up. And that, you know, took us down a case that happened in 2014 where I ended up in the hospital for multiple months at a time.
And... I want you to talk about this case specifically, like how it happened at 2014. But before that, what is usually the length of the flare-up for you?
Oh, I can't say. Honestly, right. Looking back at a lot of these cases right now, it seems like like it just passed by really quickly. I'm not very cognizant of time. I'm more cognizant of what I'm going through at the time.
Also, the drugs doesn't help, right?
Yeah. You're on a lot of things. Your body's going through a lot of different, you know, journeys within itself. There's no such thing as homeostasis. So when you are going through that journey, you're thinking about, you know, more so what am I going through rather than how long have I been going through it. But you know, I've had multiple months long, you know, a year of a flare-up. You know, of course, the first time was the longest one. It's multiple years on end because I didn't speak to anybody. But after that, it never lasted more than 6 months.
Okay. But you would not be confident to say that if it would happen in the future that, okay, well, I'll focus now and in 6 months I'm for sure good.
Yeah, I couldn't say this. I couldn't say I have to go back to experience, and in experience I will try to catch it. If I do catch my symptoms coming in, I will dial myself back in to an extreme, you know, extreme discipline in sleep, extreme discipline in food, extreme discipline in stress management. But it has been the case where you don't catch it early enough. And you need to go back to the doctor, you know. They are there for, I mean, I say I need to go back to the doctor where that doctor is part of my support mechanism. Consult them. I consult her all the time. You know, she tells me this is what we're going to do. This is the plan, X, Y, and Z.
So you mentioned before we started recording that first they were putting you on corticosteroids, then immunosuppressant for another 2 years or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you said, enough's enough, and you do it your way.
All right. Another disclosure, that was my decision.
Not recommended.
Not recommended for everybody, and not recommended to anybody, actually. From my perspective, corticosteroids' objective was to get things to calm down very quickly, right? And immunosuppressants take a long time to kick in. So while they have a lot less of excuse me, I'm trying to reverse back to what I wanted to say. All right, while they have a lot less side effects, immunosuppressants take a lot longer to kick in. So what they do is what they did with me, is they gave me corticosteroids for a period of time.
It's like an emergency brake, right?
Yeah. Everything needs to halt, and the corticosteroids are there for you to, you know, reset back into regular life. But I mean, at some point, immunosuppressants are very tough on you. I'm sure there are a lot tougher journeys that people go through. But immunosuppressants kind of make it hard for you to get on with your life because you're in a constant low immune system. You're always getting sick. You always have the flu. You always have a cold. Getting out of bed in the morning was the funnest fight of your life. You always keep sleeping for 12, 14 hours. But you have a life. You need to get to work. I was a coach at the time, so 5:30 opened the gym. You need to be there at 5:30. Nobody cares if you're going through something or not.
Did you miss it a couple of times?
I have missed in my career. I've missed a couple of classes. I have.
Well, I know coaches who missed it and they were not sick or anything.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, I have had a couple of cases in the morning where I just slept through. So usually when I was on immunosuppressants, I'd always move back in with my parents. They were a very great support mechanism, and my father would, if he needed to wake me up with a bottle of water and just throw it on your face for you to get up, he'd be that support mechanism. My parents as well.
You were even sleeping through alarms.
I was sleeping through everything. Unless somebody picked me up and put my feet on the floor, I wasn't getting up. And you could sleep for 12 hours. I mean, that was just me. Your body is going through its own system, and taking all these medications. They have their side effects, good sides, bad sides.
Okay, so the protocol, the doctors, I don't know if it's usually, but for you it was.
Yeah.
You go for a couple of months on corticosteroids, which will basically do very strong anti-inflammatory process to your body, right? Which is helping you to kick back into your life.
Yeah.
And then you go to another year, 2?
So I did it twice, 2 cycles, about 1.5 years and 2 years was the last one. I cut the last one in half after I got hospitalized for catching a virus.
And there you basically taking immunosuppressants, which is there to basically prevent your own immune system.
Correct.
Do what it does to your intestine.
Correct.
To your colon.
Yeah. So it reduces your entire immune system, brings it all down. It doesn't eliminate it, but just brings it down enough so that your colon and your digestive system can go through a rehabilitation process.
I believe that cancer patients before transplants are doing this a lot because
Correct.
they need, whether it's an organ or it's a bone marrow, they call
Bone
it.
marrow transplant. Yeah.
Bone marrow transplant. They need to suppress your immunity because the transplant is coming from a different person, which would be immediately recognized by your body as a foreign, and the immune system would not accept whether it's whatever the transplant is, right?
Absolutely.
And that's fucked up.
Yeah. It's, again, doctors work with the tools that they have. These are the tools that they have today. There's new studies coming out. They've offered me, and hats off to all my doctors for all the work that they did. They've offered me multiple other solutions. It just tends to be that this is the least invasive solution in my life, right? Other solutions involved a plastic bag, so that your secretion goes into the bag, as I understood it.
It actually avoids going through the part that is infected.
Exactly. So it gives that part a rest. Again, I wasn't comfortable with it. There was
external or internal?
External. Yeah. So it goes out. There's a lot of Crohn's patients that have a more severe case than I did, that will go down that route because they don't have much of a choice. There are new medications that I have, in my time as a coach, been approached by a pharmaceutical company. He said, "Listen, take this to your doctor, see what you think." The doctor agreed. It is an option, but it was very, very expensive at the time. I had no insurance.
What was it?
I wish I could tell you.
Okay.
I wish I understood how it even worked. But all I understood at the time was it was a different option, right? And it was available on the market, and doctors agreed with it. So there's a big delay between when science and research starts to discover solutions and when these solutions are available for us patients in the market and to the doctors to be able to prescribe, right? So we can't go to the doctor and say, "Listen, I've seen this research paper. It's done by X, Y, and Z, and I want to go down that route." The doctor isn't able to, do that because there's a process. There's a process of, making sure it's safe. There's a process of commercializing it. There's a process of so on and so forth. So this was an option that was available on the market and available for doctors to use, but it was very, very expensive at the time, and just couldn't afford it. So we did the regular one.
What was the toughest flare-up you got? Can you say this?
Toughest flare-up was my time in London. Yeah, toughest flare-up was my time in London, definitely, because new environment. Everything was different. You're still, as a student, you're still trying to figure out how to manage your money, how to...
Not only that, I mean, as a student at that age, you're just leaving your family and the whole place you were raised in, and you just moved to a whole different continent, and so, yeah, it adds on.
Did you study abroad?
No, but I lived somewhere else outside,
So that journey in itself, like you go somewhere else, even if you speak the same language, and Paolo, you've done something similar, like you came to Dubai, even if you speak English, it's a different environment, it's stressful at the start. Or at least I believe that we're tribal people, we're meant to be around people, even if you're an introvert or an extrovert, you need to have that communication and friendships and so on and so forth.
Yeah, whether the circle is smaller or bigger.
Yeah.
It's just the feeling of familiarity, like something like that's you're familiar with that's surrounding you. Even a cat, if you move it from one home to the other, it takes it 2 to 3 days sometimes to eat. So it's just...
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying animals are lesser than us, but like at the end of the day, even a cat will go through that. So why would a human being not?
So yeah, London was the toughest.
London was the toughest. Yeah, I coped I failed to cope well with that. And it got to a point where I retaliated in school, and like I did anything and everything I could to get out of there. Again, learning experience. You come back.
How you got out of that?
I convinced my dean of students to call my father and tell him we need to send Najib home.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you call your parents up, they give you this opportunity. I mean, this is a little bit of a personal journey. They give you this opportunity. They don't want you to just come back for whatever reason. It has to be a good reason. So my parents were very supportive. They brought me back, and we went through, I think, that cycle of medication. About a year and a half later is when I met my old coach, Bo. So, that was very, very important. That journey was very, very important to see how extremely impactful not dealing with your condition, not speaking to your condition, not speaking to the right people about your condition, and all the way to being in a position where you can now start to experiment about lifestyle, about food, where you can start to consult different entities and see where the experience comes from. So, London, 2012, 2013.
How do you feel now?
Now I am great. Knock on wood. Very, 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 very thankfully, things are moving much better. Again, symptoms do come and go, but I've been in a solid. For me, weight is a good indicator of where I am. So I've been in a sustainable weight for about a year and a half. My last flare-up was during lockdown. That was interesting. That's where we started to experiment with the Wim Hof method.
Before you say that,
I forgot.
We'll go into it because it's pretty funny that out of 13 episodes, probably half of them is mentioning breathing and Wim Hof method.
Yeah,
and it's not intentional. It's just people bringing it up. I wanted to ask you about that weight fluctuation because that's a big part of it, right? Like you can be from within 2-3 days. You can drop 10 kilos.
Yeah, so I do remember very vividly, like I'll drop 10-15 kilos in 2 weeks. Again, there's a lot of contributing factors. It's not a healthy thing. You go to the bathroom a lot. You have constant diarrhea. You're losing nutrients, and you don't feel like eating.
Yeah.
So there's nothing going in to supplement the things going out. Again, that contributes. It's a cycle, right? So it contributes lack of eating, the symptoms, the stress, and so on and so forth.
Is there a risk of bleeding out?
Not that I know of. I mean, again, for anybody listening, I mean, when you see blood in your stool, it's not necessarily all blood, right? There's other fluids in there, but it could be very scary when you first look at it and you're like, "Is this all blood?" For me, it wasn't the case. There's again different fluids that come out of your body there. So is there a risk of bleeding out? I don't think so. I don't know. Honestly, I can't answer that question. Okay. But I will say it is very daunting the first couple of times you look in the bathroom and you're like, oh, this is not a good scene.
What is the first symptom you will experience? Like when something's coming up, what is the first sign you're like, oh shit, this is not going well now?
So this, and I laugh for a good reason. The sign that I choose to neglect is fatigue.
Of course.
Yeah, like, oh yeah, I'm fine.
You're never tired.
You know, extra coffee will get me there. That's fine. 1 cup extra coffee and I'll be all right. But the sign that kind of like hits me on the head and be like, you need to come back to reality is blood and stool. Or again, diarrhea. Okay. So these two signs are like the wake up, you need to get after it.
You mentioned before that you were in a you ended up in a hospital. What happened there?
Yeah, so fluke accident as a result of being on immunosuppressants. I caught a virus, you know, again, you're on immunosuppressants, so your immune system is in a compromised state. Ended up in to this day, I could not tell you what the virus was. But the doctor described it in a way that anybody healthy enough with a regular immune system would just, you know, wave it off as a flu or a cold.
Was it from a bat?
I hope not. I mean, it would have been we would have been in a very different case at the moment. But it was one of these like kind of like just viruses that float around on a seasonal basis. And yeah, I ended up in the hospital. It took me about a month to leave. And yeah, I was on IV fluids for a month. I left weighing in the late 40s, early 50s. Wow. I was very, very skinny, very, very tired. Couldn't walk. I remember 3 weeks into the visit, I just wanted to get out and see some sun. So I was on crutches and I couldn't get back up. I was so tired. I was on crutches going out. So I just wanted to say like, breathe fresh air. And they had to like wheelchair me back in. But yeah, that was a fluke accident. That's when that kind of created the emotional, response that I don't want to be on immunosuppressants. I don't want to be in a compromised state again. But that was a personal decision. I said, I don't want to do this again. This is not the route of healing that I want. And yeah, it took me, that was when I first met, it was 2014, April. A lot of things happened to me in April.
You see, that's the aha moment I told you about. Like, you were just talking, and it was like, oh shit.
Oh, April, yeah. April. Everything happens in April. So yeah, I left the hospital. I met Bo at Disc. I was going there to get some work done. And he was going there to get some work done as well. We met, we talked. I told him that I wanted to, you know, I was studying sports science. And I wanted to get into the industry in some way, shape, or form. I actually first said that I wanted to compete as a CrossFitter, as all CrossFitters say when they first start, before realizing how daunting it is, and the work that needs to go in there. But he was nice enough to kind of walk me through what a professional athlete does and what Crohn's has to do with all of that journey. So. A good relationship started there. I ended up working full time for that gym, and yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Definitely 2 birds, 1 stone. Get into the sports industry and heal yourself, or like work on healing yourself. Yeah, That was fun.
And you said last flare-up was during the lockdown?
During lockdown, yeah.
So 1.5, almost 2 years now?
Yeah, almost coming up on 2 years. That was caught early, thankfully. Yeah, very, very interesting.
And you started with?
The Wim Hof, yeah. We talked about this earlier. So the flare-up symptoms started to come, you know, you're in lockdown, you lost your job, stress comes back, you know, food, you know, you sanitize everything, even choices. I lived with my parents at the time. So, you know, we're Arab, they don't have the best eating habits. Let's just say there was a lot of chips and chocolate in the cupboard at all times.
And there wasn't after.
Yeah.
So nitrate.
I lack my control. So the way I try to control myself when it comes to food is I try to keep it out of touch, out of reach, right? I know that if I can, I will.
Yeah, but that's the thing I always also say to my clients or anybody who is asking, like, well, you know, kids eating this, kid eating, like, they will not eat it if it's not at home.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, like, if you don't want to be tempted, don't get it, don't buy it. Like, why you need to have a chocolate and cookies and like,
exactly.
Like, you don't have to. If you don't buy it, who will get it there? You know, like, who will put it there?
Kids don't have like money to go buy chocolate, right?
Unless you give them. So
unless you give them money, yeah, exactly. Yeah. The opportunity is there, and again, I'm not a doctor, but if they get it from their friends in school once in a while, it's not going to break anything. But if it's constantly available,
exactly. If it's one at a time, I actually know one lady. She had a daughter who was strongly allergic on certain grains. I think it was like wheat or something. And even as a baby, whatever like biscuits or whatever she was giving her, and it was containing that, she had a rash in her like hip and groin or on the back around the neck and stuff like that. So she basically got her out of it completely. And then when she was 3-4, she maybe didn't touch any of that for a couple of years at that point.
All right.
Yeah, because they caught it very early at 8 months to 1 year.
Yeah.
Then she wasn't eating it for a couple of years. And then there was a kids' party, right?
Oops. Yeah.
And they were offered something, and she's telling her, like, I'm not saying no, but there might be an effect you will not like afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't try it. And she let her have it. And she shitted herself, puked, just like strong reaction. I think it was a good decision to let her have it, because if you just tell like, no, why? Because you will not feel well. I mean, like, that sounds like an excuse, right?
Yes, like,
Yeah.
not legitimate enough.
I can tell you, she doesn't
reject
want. She doesn't want any of that shit now,
Of
because
course.
she got that experience,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
So, yeah.
There's a comedian that once said, pain is a good reminder for what not to do.
Well, that's how pain. That's why
That's
we
how
have
pain
it,
works.
right?
Yeah, that's how pain works.
That's it. That's a guidance for what not to do, or
Exactly.
when it's too far.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because you say that there's an ownership issue for a lot of people, right? People don't take ownership of what they're going through, their overweightness or whatever it is. They look for easy way outs. They look for things to blame on other excuses, things to blame on other people. And when a family allows the child to go through an experience, whether it be traumatic or otherwise, the child innately develops, and I'm not a psychologist by any means, but like I would innately develop the ownership of saying, this will cause this, and therefore it is my decision if I want to do this harm to myself or not.
Yeah, exactly like the situation with the hot surface. Okay,
Yes.
Don't touch it; it's hot. Don't touch it; it's hot. Well, they need to touch it to know it's hot.
I think this is a human thing anyway. Just we will
That's how
not
you
learn
learn.
the lesson unless we actually go through the experience. So
Yeah, that's how you learn.
but sometimes the experience is terrible.
But the
Terrible
strong-
experiences are good for you.
Oh, I think this is what Julian was always saying.
Yeah.
Emotional balance is a theory that is telling us that the stronger is the emotional reaction about the situation, the deeper you will remember it. Right?
Yes,
Because
correct.
if you will have very strong, whether it's positive
Yeah,
or
or
negative,
negative,
but if the emotion that will be created with that situation will be very strong, you're going to remember it.
100%.
I had a friend of mine who lives in a villa, and his son was an active child, and you could see the kid always jumping on the door and then hanging on the wall of the villa.
Yeah.
Until at the end he fell off and he broke his leg. I bet you not. He's
Leg?
not. He's not. He broke his leg.
Oh,
the child
okay.
broke his leg.
Oh,
he's
wow.
okay. No, he's all right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I originally heard neck.
Oh no! Thank God, no.
That would be very strong.
Yeah,
Yes, but I mean, I'm sure that was a strong lesson. So that's an emotional experience that goes deep and it stays with him for a
100%.
long, long time.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm sure that you've gone through something in your life where it was a little bit...
He knows.
Oh my God, he had everything broken.
I broke both my legs, both my hands. I have a torn ACL.
Oh,
torn leg.
really?
Yes. On
He's,
different occasions.
I was going to say, is this one accident?
No, thank God. Imagine.
He's like this adrenaline junkie, like bungee jumping all the time.
Oh, really?
Skydiving,
Was.
scuba diving, everything.
Well, I'm less than before now.
Interesting. Do you have a skydiving license?
I'm very interested in doing it right now.
If you, we'll keep in touch after
Okay,
this.
cool. Sounds good. There you go. We have a buddy.
Once you have the skydive, I'll jump on
As a
you.
tandem?
Yeah, or you on my back. Okay, but to that point, I don't
I don't trust anybody
To
else
be
to
a
take it.
tandem expert, I think you need to have at least 1,000 jumps.
Okay.
You know how much money is that?
You should start them.
Oh, okay. You just want to jump on my behalf.
Yeah. I think there's also should be a weight ratio. You're a big guy.
Yeah, there should be a balance. So, for example, for myself, when I had the tandem, the guy was bigger than me, but the opposite would be in your case. A guy in my size could be his tandem partner.
You know, they were in the Second World War. They were even throwing tanks out of the airplanes.
Till now,
I mean, I'm sure they
throw
still
this like supply and food and stuff like this.
Yeah, this cargo. So I think the parachute is. We'll find a parachute that just holds us both.
That will work. Yeah, fair.
Anyway, talking about broken necks.
Oh yeah, I know you're gonna jump onto that. So ironically, you say like broke everything. I also did an ACL surgery at 16 prior to Crohn starting. But you know, I'm assuming you're jumping on the broken back thing.
Yes.
Is it back or neck?
Back.
Okay.
Back. Sorry, my bad.
Interesting experience. You know, a fluke. I was on corticosteroids at the time, and I was doing snatches, so snatch training. And anybody that is listening that doesn't know what a snatch is an exercise that goes from the weight, a barbell, goes from the floor to over your head in a squat position. And I remember catching the snatch, and my right or left elbow, and I couldn't like remember if I could. I wish I could remember. Sorry, overextended. So my natural reaction was to tuck everything in and leave the bar.
No.
Because your elbow, and you've seen it with Brooke Wells, right? She got into the snatch and her elbow dislocated. So I felt my elbow go a little bit further than 180 degrees. And I don't know why my initial reaction was to just tuck in, and the bar fell on my back. It was like 190 pounds.
That's 80 kilos.
About 80 kilos, yeah.
It's a human being falling in you.
Yeah, and a barbell is a very small area, right? So it's 180 pounds small, like on a very specific place. So I fractured, if we're going to be specific, I fractured my T4 and broke my 12th rib. Wow. On that. And yeah, that was an interesting experience. I didn't know. Anybody that tells you, I mean, I've had a ACL surgery, I've had a lumbar disc before, a lot of bumps and bruises growing up, but nothing. I mean, it didn't hurt as much as everybody would think it would hurt. I didn't know for 2 weeks. So I went about my life. I did everything. You know, I was coaching. I was working out. You know,
coaching
at the time,
is like working out. So,
yeah, I was going about my life. I was just had a little bit of pain, so I stayed away from
bruises appeared. Like you said, the rib as well.
So it was the back.
Oh, the back one.
So the rib from behind.
I was wondering how did the front rib as well. Okay.
The rib just broke from the back. It was the 12th rib on the on the left side, if I'm not mistaken. And I went to the emergency room after one of our members scared me, and she was like, "Listen, my boyfriend, you know, he had this, and he went, and it completely broke, and now he's paralyzed." So I got really scared. I went to the doctor, and they did an X-ray, and they told me that it was fractured. It was a hairline fracture down about 3/4. So the bottom of the vertebra was still connected, which means it could heal on its own. Now, what they said is usually if a standard athlete goes through a similar experience, they wouldn't have broken their back. But because my bones were very frail, they were very fragile, the impact caused a fracture. So yeah, that was good fun. Okay. That was a good experience.
I assume that 80 kilo snatch, you were not really beginner at the CrossFit at that moment.
No, I was. I had been coaching for 2.5 years at the time. It was 2016. It was about August 2016, about this time of year. So I remember that was a fact. And I was going through a cycle of cortisone. So I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't eating well. I was on medication, and I was working a lot. So we were pushing the limit or the boundaries of what we were supposed to do, and definitely not keeping a healthy lifestyle, and training on top of that. So training is stress. I'm sure you talk about this all the time. Training is stress, and if you're going through a stressful time or things aren't dialed in, and you go put physical stress on top of that, it may not be the best idea. Again, different by degree.
Usually, when we say physical stress, we don't mean 80 kilo bar hitting your back.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing.
Yeah, if you go for a jog, it's very different than if you're doing a Metcon for time and intensity and stuff like that.
How was the recovery from that?
So we spent about 6 months. I went back to Dr. Bo. We spent about 6 or 8 months just doing air squats. I remember this. I will never forget this. I squatted all the time. I only did air squats. I wasn't allowed to touch a barbell. I wasn't allowed to touch rings, pull-up bars, or anything else of the sort. And I had to coach sitting down. So as a coach,
verbal cueing got very efficient then.
Yeah, so no
you can't
demonstration.
Anything.
Yeah, you can't demonstrate anything. You had to use members to demo, and only tactile cues were very, very minimal. So verbal cues all the time. That was a very interesting journey. For first 3 months at least, it was seated
but
down.
That's good from the gym. They accepted this.
I mean, they were very supportive. Again, they had other coaches on the floor at all times. They made sure that there was other highly experienced people at the time, especially throughout the recovery journey. Again, if anything happens to me, somebody there is as a backup. But yeah, they were very, very supportive, 100%.
And what was so you just basically, you avoided any impact so it can heal on its own. But you didn't have any surgery?
No.
And you had some like back support, or like they gave you something to fix it? How was this working?
So again, this is what I chose to do. It was 100% my choice. Nobody influenced my decision to do this. I didn't go see a specialist. I got diagnosed. They gave me the x-ray. They gave me the medical paper. I still have it to this day. And I took it to my physio and I was like, this is what happened. This is what the emergency doctor said. What do I do? And he's like, listen, Najib, I'm not a doctor. You need to go see a doctor. I'm like, I'm not seeing a doctor. I know what they're going to say. Again, I was young. I was in my early 20s. You know, life seems a lot rosier when you're in your early 20s. But that was a personal choice again.
Okay, and what would the doctor say?
So the doctor said, you'll never lift weight again in your life.
Of course.
The doctor said, you should never do anything other than bike and row. That's the only things that you're allowed to do. But he was an emergency doctor. He's like, and you need to go see a specialist. Again, I was in my 20s, very big ego. You know, someone tells you you're not going to do this. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm going to show you that I'm going to snatch 100. And by the way, to this day, my goal is to snatch 100 kilos. And it was for that reason. It's because he said, I'm not going to weightlift again. Now, saying fractured back is a very broad statement and may have, again, a extreme connotation to it. But my case was a very minor case compared to a lot of other people, right?
Like there wasn't a separation.
There was no separation, you know. So for me, anybody who would have said, you know, we'd need to drill, we'd need to put something in there, we need to do surgery, I would have instantly said no. Mm-hmm. Because in my head, the way my logic goes, if it's a 3/4 fracture, it can heal on its own. But that's my logic and my decision. And again, my opinion.
Okay, what was this decision something you regret now?
Yeah, 100%.
You would do it differently.
I would have done it differently.
So is it limiting you today?
It is.
What would have been different?
I would have gone and seen a specialist.
No, but what would have the specialist do to you in a different way?
At least I would have gotten an opinion. Right now, we're so far into the recovery process. It's been 4 years. The bone kind of...
You said 2016.
2016.
More than
That's
4.
6 years.
Oh, 6 years. Sorry. Even longer. It's been 6 years.
Well, you have to remember, we have 2 years that doesn't
count.
After COVID, everything's paused.
Yeah, but your body was still kind of...
I'm just saying, in our head, it's just like that there.
It's very true. You feel like 2020 and then 2022. Where's
what
the
happened?
last 2 years?
What happened?
Do you get this feeling though? Sometimes you say, "Oh, 2016, I still feel like I'm in 2020."
I have a reason why to think about 2016 for myself, and that day I was calculating. Was it 6 years? Oh my god, it's 6 years! Like I literally, this was like a week ago. I'm like, what happened? Where did it go?
Surprise! We're in 2022.
I'm still in like 2018. In my head.
Hello.
I haven't grown up.
You see it every day, you use it every day, but somehow the time is just going somehow.
It's like the memes that tells you when someone says 30 years ago, you think 1970, but it's actually
exactly. Yeah.
1992, yeah.
It's like I only know that when somebody will say like 1970, I can immediately relate because that's the year my parents were born.
Okay.
So I'm like, I have that.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I have that kind of, but exactly like you say like, 60 years ago, I was like, okay, so there was Second World War.
The First World War, the Ice Age. It's all one big year.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's 2022.
Yeah. So you would do it differently, yeah? You would
100%.
See a specialist?
Yeah. I mean, I had a big ego, I would have seen a specialist. I would have consulted, gotten multiple opinions, that was for sure. We sometimes don't give medicine the credit it deserves. These people are highly qualified, and maybe they get some negative press about it. But consulting a professional in their areas is very, very important. And big ego, didn't do it, but regret it to this day. I still have pain.
I was about to ask you. So, what kind of limitation through CrossFit does it stand against you?
So, I'm luckily enough. I have a coach. She helps keep me in check at all times. But no kipping movements. I try to avoid twisting as much as I can. No overextension. So I don't do, and let's hope the audience knows these movements. I don't do kipping toes to bar. They can Google it. I don't do kipping toes to bar. So I'll only do
muscle
strict.
ups then.
I can do muscle ups, but I can only do them strict.
Yeah. Wow.
I cannot do so anything that overextends my spine. I can't do dumbbell snatches, dumbbell clean and jerks, any rotation. So single arm dumbbell kettlebell swings. Again, these are things that I've identified over the years to cause me pain, but we are resolving them with my coach and the physiotherapist that I work with, and to bring small exposure over a prolonged period of time.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I don't want to turn this into consultation, but that's what I would definitely recommend, to involve some rotation or anti-rotation, even it's in holding position, isometric, like side planks and stuff.
Palov holds.
Yeah. So you just get that exposure because we are meant to rotate.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
But so overhead extensions, even with lightweight,
I've PR'd my snatch multiple times since the accident. I've PR'd my clean jerk. I do overhead stuff, but I only push jerk. I don't split jerk. I make sure that my presses are very, very strong before I try to introduce any momentum into the exercise. And I take it all, taking full ownership of any risk that comes along with these decisions.
You became very precise in technique.
Yeah.
Like how long was it until you actually touched the barbell? It was like a year you were only doing PVC, right?
Yeah. So it took me 6 months before I touched the PVC. So we wanted to make sure that the bone had healed before I start to introduce any hinging or PVC work. And then it took me about 4 to 5 months of PVC work before I touched the barbell.
Because I met you.
Yeah.
When you just started to
PVC work and
do some weights a little bit and putting some weights on.
Yeah.
And you were always like 15 minute warm-ups just on the PVC and drilling the speed, drilling every position and everything to absolute precision. Because that's. Have you had like a psychological block?
Huge one. It took me. I had for a long period of time, for almost 2 years, I wouldn't snatch anything above 170. But as I got more comfortable, as I started to fail, as I started to experience a little bit more and more of what my body could handle and what my body couldn't handle, I started to push the limit. My last PR was 98 kilos, so I'm really close and flirting with that 100. I'm really hoping to hit it sometime soon.
I'll send a video to the doctor.
If I can pull up the video and go to him, I will 100%. But I mean, I have the video of the day that the accident happened.
Yeah, if you'll share that with me. I will post it.
Sure,
I'll post
sure.
it to this
was
this
a
episode.
video.
There was a video, and
God.
He has it on his favorites. In
it's
his
on my
phone.
favorite file. It's a
It's a
reminder,
reminder.
of what
Yeah,
ego.
just about, it's a reminder. True. That's a good point to say.
It's a reminder of what your ego can do to you. Because,
Absolutely. I was discussing with my friends yesterday about ego lifting, and I'm totally against it. I'm
100%.
I'm competing against myself, not anyone else.
100%.
And if my body allows me to do this amount, then I'll just do it. There's not necessary.
You know, sometimes when people compete against themselves, it's even worse if they compete. You know what I mean? I know how you mean it. I'm just saying that sometimes people they need, and it's especially newbies into CrossFit, into lifting.
Correct.
Because, the strength, how it's developed, first half a year or a year, you're not really building stronger muscles. You're just building better activation through the nervous system, which means that you basically have, each time you come, you lift more. You're able to go more and more and more. So you PR for a year straight or a year and a half. And then suddenly it starts to stall because there you actually started to build the strength. To that point, it was just the basics of it. But the mentality of what happened?
But last
week it was 60, now I want 62. And then in a month, I want 64 and 66. But that's not how it works. And sometimes chasing yourself, if there is a lack of understanding and it's new people, it's very dangerous.
You just said it loud and clear now. It's lack of understanding. So for me, I understand where my limits are. And honestly, because I'm not going to a competition, I don't think about it in that way. I'm like, okay, this is my limit. I'll work on my limits. I might improve in the future, but now this is where I am. I don't need to hurt myself. If I'm feeling pain, then let me do the job. I'm here in the gym to work out for my own benefit. I don't want to go back home and hurt myself.
Yeah.
It's like what we were discussing last week when I said we go off-roading to have fun, not off-roading to die. There's a big difference. I can roll my car easily if I want. But why? I mean, I'm there to have fun and come back home as one piece.
There's no reason.
Exactly.
The training is supposed to make you better.
Correct. Not
broken.
Not broken. Not broken. 100%. And it is your coach's job to help you navigate that. But at the end of the day, it's your ownership of the risks that you're taking.
Absolutely.
Ironically speaking, we look at this, and my coach at the time was Speedy Thompson, a great friend and a great coach of mine, and he had programmed empty barbell work. He told me, do not put weight on the bar. And I wanted to do one rep max.
Specifically
for me, because he knew what I was going through. He knew that I was on medication, that I was putting in extra hours, that I was losing weight. And so he was like, listen, Najib, if you really need to, do some empty barbell work.
Okay.
I chose to do a one rep max.
Kind of the opposite. So the day you decided to lift this weight and go for one rep max, which eventually end up crashing on your back and fracturing one of your vertebrae and fracturing one of your ribs.
Correct.
That day in your program, you were supposed to do light, empty barbell work.
Correct.
That put things into a
whole
good
different,
perspective.
Totally different.
It's a humbling experience, to say the least. It's here's your ego, bring it down.
Yeah.
You're going to say something, sorry.
No, just about to say the total difference between being empty barbell and a PR.
Absolutely. And it's an understanding of, being aware of your body, being aware of your ego, being aware. Yes, ego is a good thing. Sometimes it pushes you to do nice things. It pushes you to be competitive at work, but let loose, it could have disastrous.
May I add to the sentence you said? Ego makes you do things, achieve things.
Achieve things,
because you're breaking the barrier of your fear sometimes.
100%.
It could be a positive way, but not in every single thing. But I can see widely here that you took it as a lesson, and as a coach, this is also important because you're telling the others, hey, look,
this is what it does.
Maybe you might not always share the experience, but look, there's a problem that might happen if you just go beyond this. So please, just remember.
Please calm down. Please take a step back.
As you're saying with the ego, it's like with the fire, right?
Yeah.
Are you in control, or is it controlling you?
Yeah.
Are you the master and you using it in the right way, or is it ruling you, you over?
Correct.
And I think Jocko said this, Jocko Willink, when he wrote Extreme Ownership, is like, ego is a dichotomy. You want to have a little bit of it so it can make you competitive, it can get you to achieve things, but you don't want to have so much of it that it'll break you, ruin your family life, and like ruin your goals. And again, you could say, what if I had listened, and what if I had done things the right way? Maybe my snatch would be at 120 today, not 100 or like 98. It's not even at 98 right now. I'm like back at 92.
So you regretted this a lot.
Regret is a weird way to describe it, right? Because you get Crohn's, you get all of these things. You don't regret. You try to learn, right? You try to learn from the experience. Yeah, maybe I could have done it wrong a different way, but we accept that it happened. And I am very happy of the person that I am today because of the experiences that I had went through.
I agree.
Right? I would not want to have my life a different way.
Nice.
And we're going into a philosophical discussion.
No, let's go.
No, you're taking us through the lesson that you learned from
yeah,
our experience.
100%. 100%. It's one of those things where you learn the value of the relationships that you have around you, right? The effort and work that your family puts in to one, tolerate you, but also two, to be able to help you throughout your journey. I'm really glad that I had a humbling experience of what an ego could do to you earlier in life, rather than have it at my 40s when I have a family and kids, right? I'm really glad that I had Crohn's disease to stop me from smoking, to stop me from eating bad habits. And I would say that Crohn's and my ACL surgery, both of them, contributed to an 8-year career as a CrossFit coach, right? If I didn't have those things, I wouldn't have explored the human body and what the human body could do, and had an interest in coaching. Right. And I had an 8-year career out of it. Like, I loved coaching. I loved it for a very, very long period of time. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful. I wouldn't say regret. Definitely say I would never advise someone to take the same route. And I would say I learned a lot from it. That's it.
You probably needed to learn it. So
yeah. Yeah. Young minds, you as a coach must have experienced it. I'm sure you in your day-to-day life will experience this. Somebody comes in to work and be like, even when I started a corporate job, the first thing I said, I want manager. Then I remember, I feel like when I first started CrossFit, I said I want to be an athlete. Right? There's a lot of work that goes into becoming management material, to becoming a CrossFit Games athlete. There's sacrifices, there's skills skills that you need to learn.
This is very funny about CrossFit, right? That like nobody who is going to shoot free throws and the basketball thinks that they're going to NBA next year
100%.
or within 2 years. And in CrossFit, you have full class of people like, I'll make it next year.
Games, 100%.
I know, I will just, the job will get a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Over, like, we will hire more people, so the company will be more chilled. I will have more time for the gym. And I'm on the games max 2 years. So you're looking at it like, what is going on here? Why is this happening?
And this person would have been even doing any push presses or anything. He just worked with a PVC.
Oh no, this is your
no
first
technique,
day. First day.
No,
like,
nothing.
This is not hard.
Probably 10 calories on the assault bike.
I would even say that these days it's a little bit different, but that 5, 7, 8 years ago when I started, it was like everybody was training with the thought that I can make it. I can make it.
And it was easier to make it. Like, I will say that. Sure. It was easier to make it. Now you have 17, 18-year-olds doing what the pros were doing at 2011.
Yeah.
And they do it since they were 10 now.
Yeah.
Like, they started when they were 10. We started when we were 18, 20, right?
If we go back to the philosophical perspective, right? If you read the journeys of Steve Jobs, of Elon Musk, of Rich Froning, of whoever really competed at the highest level in their endeavor, regardless what it is, right? You'll say, oh, it took him 5 years from the day he dropped out of Stanford to the day he became a billionaire. But Bill Gates was tweaking computers from like 7 years old.
Yes.
So he had years and years and years of like practice, tweaking things under his belt, skills that he had developed. When we look at athletes, oh, this athlete, made it to the games in a year, but he used to be a professional ice hockey player.
Correct.
Like, He competed.
Yes, even Formula drivers. They started as karting when they're 5 or 6 years old. Football players, the professional ones, they start at a very early age. They were in the club from 7 and 8. The commitment, and every single thing that comes through the journey. So yeah, not me, but at the age of what is it when I joined 3 years ago. So at 36, I joined CrossFit for the first time, and
exactly.
Imagine I'd say, I'm going to the competition.
Regionals.
Well, you can, but maybe when you're 60, you will go to masters.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, exactly.
Just
True.
saying,
Yeah,
like,
true.
you know, it just takes what it takes. The thing is that within CrossFit, everybody has or used to have, but even now, like, everybody has the same conditions. Like, you have the same med ball, you have the same barbell, you have the same GHD machine, and it all looks the same, and everybody has kind of the same options. However, people, as you said, don't see what that people who are at the top were doing before. Yeah, when you see like, oh, I'm following Rich Fronings's program, or I'm following Matt Fraser's program, like, cool. But when they were at the stage of development where you are right now, they were not doing that.
6
They
hours
were
a
doing
day.
very different things.
Yeah, the program is the end of the cook, right? That's the food on the table. But you didn't see the ingredients and everything that went to the supermarket, had to buy this, that.
Yeah.
Didn't see the work that went in at the beginning. And this is
And
even,
the experiments as well.
100%. And the failures, like Matt Fraser had multiple failures in weightlifting before he got into CrossFit.
You know, he broke his back.
100%.
He had experimental surgery.
Yeah.
Whoa.
He had experimental surgery. There was 50-50 if he will walk again, basically. Like, I mean, walk to a degree. Like, he wasn't about to be paralyzed. I don't think so. But he actually broke. It was a stress fracture. Something popped in his back. It wasn't an impact from outside. It was a chronic stress fracture. And they told him, like, look, there is a chance, like, you either do this or you don't do it. But then you will have to kind of, you'll be very limited in your performance. He went for the surgery. It went well. And then he won CrossFit Games 5-6 times.
Yeah.
6.
We're neglecting another portion of it. Like, we say a lot about the work you put in and the effort that you put in and the years of practice, right? But there's also a physiological aspect to it. There's a genetic aspect to it, right? So things have to meet for this to be, let's say we'll take whomever, Bill Gates, Elon Musk, they were smart, cognitively smart people that tweaked computers and played with things early on. So that combination brought them to success. If you were, let's say, not physically gifted, people put a taboo about like not being smart, but let's say you're not physically gifted. I come from 4 generations of smokers and, bad healthy habits and stuff like that. Naturally, I'm not going to be, but part of my goal is to make my next generation
better,
have a better chance, right? Have better genetics. And, we're looking at science now, and science is so, genomics and all of that stuff is so advanced that it tells you there's a potential for 3-4 generations down the line for them to have better genes and to start with a better baseline than you were given by your family. So again, we'll go back to that philosophical discussion about like, genes and nature versus nurture, and also the amount of time that you put into a sport or to an endeavor for you to become successful. You can't come in and say, I'm gonna, in 2 years, my manager laughed at me when I got the job. He was like, listen, you're gonna need some time.
It's the thought you actually said there. I think it's very powerful that what we can do, what we for sure can do, regardless of our own successes, is to set up a better baseline for our kids, grandchildren, and so on, just through the habits, also a personal impact you have, right, by thought processes and how you bringing them up, but also genetically, also habitually. Right.
Exactly.
When we always say like, now chronic disease is a huge topic, like how it's killing everybody around the world, that there is more obese people than starving people in the whole planet, right? Like all the chronic diseases, like it's a disease you got because of your habits and because how you live. It's not like, oh shit, obesity happened to me. Well,
you had to contribute.
Yeah, I'm not. You might have a predisposition to gain more.
Yeah,
but it's also. I'm not saying it's not the stress and shit, but like, okay, if stress is making you fat, do something about it.
Yes.
You know, do something about that stress.
Yeah.
Which is bringing us back to your Wim Hof experience.
Oh yeah,
How
yeah,
you
that was fun.
Yeah, so you're saying that during the lockdown,
Yeah,
you had another flare-up,
correct.
and the situation wasn't looking great.
Correct. It escalated too quickly. I was doing some courses at the time. You know, I didn't have a job. I didn't have a full-time job to go to. So I was kind of trying to take advantage of that to maintain my sanity. You know, you're in close quarters with family and so on and so forth. So you want to keep yourself busy. So I took on a data science and analytics machine learning course that was on Canadian time in a topic that I had no understanding of. So I was studying all day and then doing the lectures all night with the college in Canada. And of course, as somebody with Crohn's, you know, sleep is important, stress management is important. And it was a very, very intensive course. So naturally, things escalated really quickly, flare up, you know, the time from where it started and when it got out of hand was very short. So again, that support mechanism comes very important, right? We had to sit down with my family, and I was like, these are my options. I didn't have comprehensive medical insurance at the time. I trusted one doctor. I was comfortable to go to one doctor, and I didn't want to start to experiment with other, opinions. So the conversation was, do we go to the doctor and go through the cycle again? Or I wanted to try this method called the Wim Hof method. And again, disclosing this multiple times, this is a decision that I made. This is not advice to anybody. This is something that I wanted to experiment on myself with. I bought a freezer, filled it up with water, and I mean the sealing process of the freezer itself was a learning lesson that was a lot of fun. You know, I tried to seal it with tape, fill it up with water. It leaked everywhere.
It's leaking.
It was leaking, yeah, because you're supposed to seal the corners, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know how this works. Like when I do ice bath, I have just a tube and I'm buying ice every time.
Yeah, so the goal was not to buy ice.
Okay.
Are you also freezing it yourself?
Yeah, so no. I wasn't freezing it. I was going into the freezer. So I bought a chest freezer.
Oh, the chest freezer.
Yeah. I bought a chest freezer.
Many people doing it this way. They have the chest freezer.
Yes.
They pour water into it, which it needs to be sealed before.
Exactly.
Which I learned right now. And you that time.
I learned it the hard way.
Okay.
So I filled it up first because you don't see any cracks, right? So you're like, oh, okay, I'll just fill it up with water. But a chest freezer isn't supposed to be filled up with water. So first things first, always take the electricity off if you want to try this out. That's a good advice.
That's a very solid advice.
Yeah. Always make sure that it's not plugged in. So I bought the chest freezer, filled it up with water. It took me about a week to figure out how to seal it. So I bought this epoxy, sealed up the corners and filled it up with water, lifted it off the ground. Again, I was in an apartment at the time, so I had to be cognizant of the weight. You know, that's a lot of weight in a very small space in the apartment. So I made sure. My dad, thankfully, is a mechanical engineer, so he kind of helped me with that. And yeah, it was the goal was to do the Wim Hof breathing method, which, you know, it's hyperoxygenation in a form. If I want to dumb it down a lot, you know, you put yourself in a situation where it's
both, because you go hyperventilation,
and then you hold,
where you have a lot of oxygen in. That's the purpose, and then the breath hold is to spend that oxygen, and then you basically are in a slight, and then eventually, depends how far you push, oxygen deficiency, and then you repeat it. Yeah.
So that was an interesting, that came about from a couple of research papers that I read. Again, the internet's full of stuff, right? So you kind of read what you want to read and take out of it what you want to take out of it.
This is exactly what Asha was saying when we were recording about her pregnancy.
Yeah.
She was like, I Googled everything and I always found the answer I wanted to.
It's funny. So I used to sit down with a bunch of very, very smart people. Luckily, I was blessed with friends that were very, very educated, very smart. And one of them had mentioned something, and she's like, I could find you whatever research to fit the theory that you want.
Yeah.
Right?
I even had a teacher at school when I was studying, and there was only very few people on the faculty who were understanding statistics,
Yeah.
But you need everything you need to do if you want to do some, at least, like semi-valid research. There needs to be some statistical
100%.
evaluation, yeah? If it's not just empirical experiment. And even there, you need some statistical data evaluation. So everybody was coming to this one guy, and he was known for actually claiming like, okay, so what do you want me?
And I'll make it fit.
Yeah, like I will use a method, because there's a shit ton of methods like how to put the data together, right? So it's like, well, you tell me what you want me to be the result, and I'll make it look like that just by picking the right statistics is lying on a flat line. Like
I wouldn't say lying to that extent. Like, I'll contradict over there. So one of the nice things that I saw is when we were learning how to visualize data, right? And it's exactly that, right? You can make things seem drastically out of proportion. Let's say votes, and I can put the vote difference visually to be this here and here, but in reality, there's a 2 vote difference, right? I don't know enough about statistics to go there, but it's very interesting when you go through Google and you go through open information or the web, and you have a preconceived notion of what you want to find. You will find something to prove that, and you could even go at like a credible source. It doesn't have to be Wikipedia. It could be a credible source, right? So it's taking ownership of, I want to try this, and I'm willing to take the risks that are associated with it, or I want to de-risk myself and put it all on the doctor, or put it all on this. And I was in a position where I said, look, I want to try it. And I'll take whatever risk comes across there. I took ownership of that. If it worked, it worked. If it didn't work, it's not no harm done per se, but whatever result of that, I'll learn. Yeah. It worked out really well for me. It took me about a week and a half, 2 weeks for things to settle back down. The first night, I will say this, I slept for like 14 hours after it, because I did it at night, and I realized that I would do it and I'd crash. I had a friend of mine who would do it in the morning and have the best working day ever. So subjective to person. Like cold exposure could make you so active and so dialed in.
What was the exact procedure? How you were doing it?
So initially, I tried to go into the freezer straight away, but cold
with no
water,
breathing preparation,
with nothing.
Okay.
I didn't know enough about it, right? So I knew who Wim Hof was.
Benoit is the founder of Cool In, Breathe Out.
Yeah.
You know him?
I've heard of him. He's the guy in Jumeirah?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he did the same. He was like, we didn't know what we were doing. We were just jumping in the bucket.
I had no idea.
I bought ice and jumped into it.
It's exactly that. I had no idea. I bought ice. I knew there was a breathing thing to do. I didn't know where I was supposed to do it. Some people said the internet, some people said before, some people said after.
Never do it after. Benoit was actually talking about this. He was like, they tried it, they did it after, and they basically went super dizzy and almost passing out. Yeah. So breathing always first. Yeah.
Yeah. So 2 things I did. I had supervision. I kept supervision at all times. Yeah. I was testing something out. I didn't know what the result was going to be. I took a risk by, having a freezer, having electricity around me. I just made sure that there was someone there that could call the ambulance if anything was gonna happen. Thankfully, for my father. The first couple of times I did it completely dry, went straight into the water, did the breathing after, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Didn't work out. And then I got into the hot shower first.
Okay, when you said you did the
breathing after?
No, I mean, how long you were there? Like you
first couple of times, about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
I couldn't handle it anymore.
But no breathing. You just straight away.
Yeah.
Jumped into the cold water, which was roughly 3-4 degrees maybe.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I didn't even test it. I'd go until I could see ice on top of the water, and I'd just break the ice and just jump in. So again, living in an apartment, kind of had to figure out how like you're going to mess everything up and clean after yourself and all of that stuff. So you had to have that negotiation.
Who's going to clean up?
Who's going to clean up after you? You take your own t-shirt and just wipe the floor after you're done. And it was an interesting process. I started to take a hot shower first. I got into the routine of taking a hot shower, doing the breathing, getting into the ice tub, and then trying that out twice.
Like 2 cycles?
2 cycles. And it didn't work out. I thought the best thing to do was to leverage 1 cycle as best as I can. So after the habit of the hot shower, I realized having water on me kind of reduced the surprise of the cold. Mm-hmm. I wasn't completely dry when I went in, but then I was able to just take my clothes off, sit down, do the breathing, go straight into the water. And it's definitely like, if nothing else, it helps with mental discipline, right? If there's no physiological
100%.
advantage, 100%, it helps with having a barrier of, I do not want to go into this water. Not a single part of me wants to go into this freezer, but close my eyes, just get in, and I'll deal with the consequences later, right? If nothing else, that was a great advantage.
And then when you do the breathing, or when you did the breathing, what were you doing?
So it was, luckily at the time, Wim Hof, the app, had opened up the
free trial.
The free trial to not to be a month. It was just free. It was during lockdown. I think they wanted people to like give this a try. And it was free for all. It was no longer you had to pay to come in. You had to pay to get into certain parts of the app, but that part which gave you the fundamental guidance, the guided breathing, which was 30, if I'm not mistaken, 20 to 30 breaths, hyperventilating, and then a hold for as long as you can, and that measures the hold for you, and then you exhale and hold for 15 seconds.
It's opposite.
Sorry.
You at the end, it's. I mean, you said.
Oh, you inhale and hold.
Inhale,
You
because
inhale
the main hold is after exhale.
Yes.
Yeah. And then you inhale, 15 seconds.
Yeah.
Hold, and then you start.
Then you start again.
Yeah.
So that app. So I don't have to rely on my memory, which we now understand is very bad. That app allowed me to kind of have that guided breathing. It also gives you some guidelines where you want to put when you start. It also says don't do it close to water. Again, these are risks that I chose to take myself. So I do 4 or 5 cycles first. First I started with 3 cycles, and then I went about 4 or 5 cycles, and then I ended about 7. 7 was like the sweet spot.
7 cycles.
7 cycles. 7 breathing cycles. Yeah.
Oh shit! That's like 30 minutes.
Yeah, 100%. I was invested. I was in a position where,
especially
it was nothing
when you have it as a healing procedure.
Exactly.
Of course. Just out of curiosity, I mean, no ego pushing. Yeah, what was the highest hold you were able to get to?
I wish I could tell you. I really cannot remember. I do remember I started about like a minute 30. And then maybe I pushed it to about 2 minutes some change. It was nothing like crazy. It was nothing obscene. If I'm not even mistaken, the first time I did it was like 50 seconds.
Yeah.
I was panicking. I was like...
When you're not used to it, it's very different.
And I grew up in a pool. Like I grew up swimming. I was a competitive swimmer in Dubai. I competed for my school, Emirates International School. So I was comfortable holding my breath. But even then, like doing hyperventilating and then going into that, ironically, a lifeguard when I was a kid taught me this thing where he, very, very funny that we bring this aha moment. He taught me this thing where you go under the water, you exhale deeply, you go up, you inhale, and you do that 30 times. And then you try to go for a max distance swim.
It's the same
which
thing.
Is the same thing, right?
It's the exact same thing.
And it was a lifeguard that taught me how to swim, by the way. No sports PE teacher taught me how to swim. It was a lifeguard in our compound that taught me how to swim. And he taught me this to like maximize how far I could get under the water if I on one breath hold. It wasn't called the Wim Hof method. There was no breath holds. It was just hyperventilating.
I don't want to take any credit from Wim Hof now because he's doing an amazing job.
100%.
However, I believe that all these things he got it from somewhere. He just somehow put it together. I think the breathing he got from yoga or certain yoga practices.
I do know that freedivers do it.
Well, there's a freediver here.
You freedive?
I'm not to the extent of 30 meters or so.
Yeah.
But yeah, my dad used to, on the boat, he used to tie a rope with a certain weight just to hang for us.
Yeah.
12 or 15 meters max.
Really?
So, yeah. And then his friends would be spearfishing, so they would hang on it and then they spearfish. We wouldn't go deeper because we're not.
This is how you spearfish.
But you hold. It's because otherwise that's the thing with spearfishing. You're chasing something, so you tend to forget the depth that you're going on to, and
surprise.
Surprise, exactly. But so I didn't learn it the way where the professionals are now, where they learn how to, control everything and they breathe in a proper way. We were kids anyway, so. Nowadays, when I go, I'll do 50 seconds underwater at the 10 meters, 12 meters.
Yep.
But while I'm moving. So, when
you're
moving,
of course, the consumption is very different.
Yeah. So, but I don't spearfish, though. But yeah, I can stay for that long. I think when my stamina when I was into sports in the last couple of years, it actually made me stay longer. Because I'm capable of...
your body's...
I'm capable of... But when I was a bit overweight, it was a bit hard. That was the challenging part.
There's a molecular perspective, right? So the more muscular you are, the faster your body consumes oxygen.
For sure.
So people that are freedivers can't get too big because
they can't. You have to be fit. Yeah,
you have to be healthy.
Absolutely fit.
We don't only mean fit, but you can't have too much muscles.
Yeah.
That I'm not really sure about.
Because
burns.
each fiber is burning oxygen, right? So there is probably certain sweet spot on muscularity as well.
It's a different type of fitness, right?
Yeah,
it's a different type of fitness.
Yeah. But to bring back the fact of freedivers and breathing, yes, they do practice breathing. They have a method for that. They have a way to I think they breathe in 2 different ways, and they fill the belly as well with that, so to stay as long as possible. I know people that here in UAE, they can do on surface 4 minutes and a half.
Wow.
I know there's a girl, she has a video. It's obvious, you can see the timer on the surface of the pool, and she did 4 minutes and 20 seconds.
Timea did 3.5 minutes.
Unbelievable.
And that was basically doing Wim Hof just for herself every morning.
Yeah.
For maybe a month or 2, she was following this, and then she was like, 3:20. I was like, what?
Yeah, I mean, doing Wim Hof for the breathing method for a prolonged period of time, it feels like when you first start CrossFit, right? You PR every time.
Exactly.
You're always there. You're always getting like a new record, and then you hit that I think at about 1 minute 55, it was the timer where I stopped progressing. I remember plateau.
It depends. It's also partly genetics for sure, and
the video I shared with you, the couple that went underwater in the pool, and the guy stayed for 7 minutes and so.
Yeah.
They had the timer and they just chilled literally, and it was 7 minutes and so.
He's pretty bored there because he was doing plank,
he was going
side
around.
Plank, and on his back. It's
how do I consume time?
They were, I think, on 50 centimeters or maximum meter depth, not much.
Yeah.
You said something very, very interesting. You said belly breathing, right? So this is a problem we have as coaches, how to brace and I think it's very, very important, not just to understand that breathing is very important, but how to breathe is also very important, right? Whether you're doing CrossFit and you want to brace for a squat, or you want to attempt Wim Hof method to further your physical health, manage your disease, whatever it is.
Last week I had a podcast with Salina, and she's Timea's colleague from DISC, and she specializes in women's health. We had this chat about breathing, and I was always teaching, and I was always saying okay, you blow out your obliques, you activate your lower abs, and that's also a way how to make the core stronger. Yeah. Especially for ladies who tend to pee themselves because the pelvic floor is weak. And then she's like, yeah, but how do you know the pelvic floor is not too strong, over tense, and you doing that
is going to make it worse.
And not focusing on relaxing the pelvic floor. Because you can still do the belly breathing to your obliques and lower abs, especially don't breathe to the top part of the belly.
Yeah.
Like that's a great way to get panic attack. Like just going the high chest or high belly breathing.
Yeah.
But also the other aspect of it, how much do you activate or relax the pelvic floor? Because if it's hyperactive, you don't need to make it more active. It's actually going to be counterproductive. So, okay, belly breathing, but then how is your pelvic floor? And pelvic floor activity, it's hard to teach.
100%.
Because you need to be like, okay, so am I squeezing it down there or am I releasing it down there? And it's like when I tell you, like, feel like you want to stop your pee coming out, like you just holding and flex these muscles around your ass and under your ass, like when you do that, when you do belly breathing, when you do bracing in CrossFit, do you also squeeze that, or is it relaxed, or is it over tense? You know, so it's like it's way more complex.
Opens your horizons
completely,
and that's one of those things. Like you're speaking to multiple professionals, right? You're a professional. You have academic background in what you're teaching. She is a professional. She has an academic background in what she's teaching. No professional is going to give you a 100% accurate, comprehensive. It covers everything and anything that you can,
absolutely.
Each professional has their own view on it. It's very subjective, right? I think it's very similar with like whether it be athletics, free diving, CrossFit, or even like managing your disease.
And then you will have some, let's say, freaks who will basically do it completely their own way.
Yeah.
And it still works for them.
Still successful.
Even it's complete opposite of what you would normally teach.
100%.
It's like, so you're saying, by the way, to that Wim Hof breathing, you don't need to have the app. This video, what we are describing, the 30 breaths and so on, you can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
You just log like Wim Hof breathing. The only thing is that the breath holds, it's 3 cycles there, and the breath holds are always minute, and then 1.5 minute and 1.5 minute. But you can still pause the video
to prolong
it, and then you play it again. I do it with my clients.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
So you don't need to have
share
that
it with me, because I never did any of the Wim Hof.
It's great, but luckily it was on the app. Like luckily I had some security in there's guidance from the guy that created this method.
And how did that help you? The whole experience.
How is very hard to answer. I don't know where the mechanics come from. How the molecular.
What did it do to you then?
My symptoms gone. Okay. My symptoms went 100%. I was back on. Yeah.
Crazy. Like
you should actually
no medication.
Reach out to Wim Hof and tell him. Honestly.
So Wim Hof has. This is another part of like where you say, I feel secure, right? So there's multiple parts in me trying or me taking the decision to try this method. One was Wim Hof did experiments with a medical facility where, and I hopefully can regurgitate this information correctly, where they introduced a form of dead bacteria into his body as well as his subjects, and he didn't present symptoms.
It was, you're saying it very correctly, it was bacteria of E. coli.
There we go.
No way. Oh, wow.
Well, he said, like, I can eliminate it if you will inject it to me. And I was like, no fucking way. And so they injected it to him, and also control group. Everybody got sick, and he was okay. And they're like, oh, that's because you are a freak, and,
genetics.
This is not normal, that's just you. And he's like, I can teach it, people. Give me people for a week, and I'll teach that to them. And they're like, you have 2 days. Okay. He taught them, same thing. Everybody in his group, nobody got sick. Everybody in a control group, everybody got sick.
Interesting.
Like, what they call the autonomous nervous system, parasympathetic, sympathetic. It's not as autonomous as everybody thought.
Yeah.
You can tap into it. You can control it through, especially breathing, discomfort, whatever the discomfort might be. It can be the sauna, it can be heat, it can be fasting, as we're talking with Benoit. You just get this discomfort exposure, and your body is like, well, I need to figure it out. And there is a very, very good scientific explanation for this as well. Because, life, and this is also going a little bit into quantum mechanics and stuff like that. when the goal of life is to eliminate all surprises. Why? Because if you're surprised in any situation, it means danger because you didn't predict it well.
Yeah.
Body is a predictive machine. It always predicts. It's not only reactive. It always predicts. And if you have certain expectation, this is on a cellular level. This is not talking about conscious decisions and conscious things, because right now you have thousands of stimulus going into your body, but only very few of them are going to your consciousness.
Yeah.
Because you would go crazy. You know how hard or how soft the chair you're sitting at is. You know what the temperature is. Until there is not smoke, or you're not like sweating like crazy because there is 35 degrees or 40 degrees inside, you will not really be like, okay, well, what is the temperature here, right? It's not going to your consciousness, because you would go crazy with having all that in your mind. And with this prediction machine, what body is, you have prediction and then you have the actual observation, what is actually happening. If the gap in between is big, you are in danger because you expected something, but the reality is somewhere else. Different. So we always want to eliminate surprise. What is the best way to eliminate surprise? Well, go to as many uncomfortable situations you can, because exposure, right? You are exposed to it. You know what to expect. So go to cold, go to hot, go to train starved, trained with a full belly. Like do just as many variations as possible, because that's how you basically building stronger yourself.
Correct.
Yeah, with being capable of at least reacting to every possible scenario.
100%. I completely agree. And there's so much different literature, as well as logical conclusions that you can take to arrive at the same concept, right? There's Nassim Taleb, who is an economist, very, very smart guy in his field, who constantly discusses introducing stress into different environments, even into like your investment portfolio, right?
Is it Nassim?
Nassim Taleb,
Nassim Taleb,
yeah. So he even talks, he's a powerlifter. He's a powerlifter economist. So for me, as an ex-strength and conditioning athlete, now going corporate, I mean, this guy is amazing, right? He's a power athlete. He's a PhD. He's a professor. He has books. You know, he I don't know if he came up with or commercialized the concept of the black swan, and which is essentially, you know, unforeseen events. You know, being able to be able to adapt to unforeseen events. He talks about fasting. He talks about people that are not designed to eat 6 meals a day, right? Because, well, food wasn't available at and when you chose for it to be there. But, you know, you can arrive at the same concept, and from a logical perspective, you see a lot of these ex-military guys that have gone to World War II and gone to World War I, or like extreme athletes that skydive and free dive and so on and so forth, live to 80, 90, right? Subject to them not actually enjoying themselves on the sport, or like getting shot.
Parachute will open.
Yeah, but they live to a very, very long period. You know, surfers, extreme surfers, they seem to have prolonged lives, that they're more adaptable to situations than the average Joe or Jane that, you know, has everything done by the book. You know, there's no change in schedule. There's no change in eating habits. Ironically speaking, you know, if we go back to Crohn's, if we go back to the journey, I realized that if I do any diet, if I do any schedule for 6 months straight, my Crohn's will start to come back.
So routine will be a problem.
I don't know what it is. I can't explain the logic. I feel like my body adapts to something and it goes back to the normal.
Yes.
And I need to constantly, you know, push, change.
It found peace.
It found peace.
This is just a theory, but this is how I would theoretically go for an explanation. Like you adapt it, and it kind of found its baseline. And if you're at your baseline, you're getting flare up.
100%.
Yeah, and that's when it starts to come back. So you kind of. You do constant change then, yeah?
I constantly change things. I introduce stress in different ways. You know, for me, again, not something I advise, but a pint of ice cream and overnight will kind of surprise. I'll have a completely horrible next day. I'll spend the entire day in the bathroom, but it kind of resets me. The ice breathing was a lot healthier way of doing that. The Wim Hof breathing going into the ice was stress. It was exposure. I'll do it for a week. It completely shifts everything. If I train in the morning, I'll start to train at night.
So you were able to get the symptoms completely down through the ice bath, Wim Hof method breathing,
correct.
With no medication or supportive.
In this case specifically, yes, no medication was used for me to be able to get down to zero symptoms or zero perceived symptoms. So I still had a slight degree of fatigue that came with the territory of what I was doing at the time, but no symptoms where it was life altering.
Cool. And do you take some drugs or whatever it is, some enzymes or something on a regular basis?
So I play around with a lot of things. I used to I started training when I was 13, 12, and I was taking protein shakes and pre-workouts. At the time, we were 12, 13. We had access to Google. You see what Arnold Schwarzenegger was taking, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to train the same way, and I'm going to take the same supplements.
12 eggs in the morning.
Yeah, 12 eggs in the morning. That's exactly where the 12 eggs came from.
Really?
I Googled something, and it was said, like, this bodybuilder does this. I'm like, oh, I'm going to do the same thing. I guarantee you, and I really believe this to my core, smoking at a young age, I was 13 when I started, and taking all these supplements, regardless if they're good for you when you're an adult or not, but at a young age could have contributed drastically to me exhibiting Crohn's at the age of 16.
Wow.
I do think, and I just say this is my opinion, looking back at things, that they could have contributed drastically. Now, if you go back to supplementation and all of that stuff, I've played around with a lot of things, vitamin D, fish oil, vitamin C prior to bed, it says that it reduces your cortisol, so it makes you sleep better, so on and so forth. Nothing ever works. Everything that is manufactured in a facility usually tends to make me irritable. There's one exception that I'm testing out right now called, everybody knows what it is, but we usually make it in a soup bowl. It's bone broth. I was able to find the powdered form of bone broth. I'm still testing it out.
I think I've seen it.
It's an organic store. So I'm just testing it out. I don't know how it's going to work out so far. I used to use bone broth, which was magic for me. The collagen in bone broth, I don't know how it does it, or I don't know if it's just the collagen, but bone broth was a clean, liquid source of protein for me. That was easily accessible and easy to drink, that was not powdered or made in a manufacturing facility. But it was expensive and time consuming to make. So finding the powdered bone broth was a huge, that's awesome, let me try this out. I'm taking a risk with it. I don't know how it's going to pan out. I'll let you know when and if anything happens. But I mean, that's the only supplement I take at the moment.
And you plan to consume it in like many times a week, or like
just once a day? I mean, there's no drastic reason for me to do it. I mean, I have my fitness goals, my strength goals. My strength goals are very specific to these days. Clean and jerk a specific number, snatch a specific number, stay healthy in general. But I would like to have a liquid form of protein, just because, corporate life is not as easy to cook all the time. You don't have accessibility to that. Collagen is very hard to find, in accessible forms, in your day-to-day diet. So I'm having it every night. I'm trying to have it every night. Let me rephrase. What we say in theory and practice usually don't work out. I've tried a lot of things. There's a lot of things that I've said on this podcast that, in theory are great, but in practice, there's ups and downs all the time. So with bone broth, there've been ups and downs, but I'm trying to take it every night. It tastes like soup.
When you said reducing the cortisol before bed, just do the breathing.
Yes.
And you don't have to do 7 cycles of it. You can just
minutes.
do, and you can even do just that the video is like 11:20 or 11:30 long, and you don't even have to like exceed your breath hold.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do it to the intensity you would do it before you want to hype yourself before the ice bath, right? You just do it to settle and calm down. It was, I had a little incident a couple of months ago where super stupidly I dropped 2 kilo plate on my nail, on my big toe.
Yeah.
But I hit it so well. I hit it
well. Yeah, I hit it badly.
I hit it so well that eventually the nail went down after a couple of weeks actually, but I couldn't sleep for 2 nights at all. Like I had, it wasn't pulsing in my big toe, it was pulsing in my knee, all the way, like whole thing. I was just like, oh my God. The only thing that helped me to calm down and somehow was at night, like at 2 a.m., I was like, well, what else? What else I can do? I had it in the ice on and off, not for healing purposes, just for numbing purposes, because I just needed to do something. But you're not going to fall asleep with your foot in the ice bucket, right? So I was like, oh shit. And I did the breathing and I got at least some sleep there. So
I mean, there's no magic solution to it, right? So it's, we say like you broke your toe or like messed up your toe. I go through Crohn's, whatever it is. A lot of people go through a lot of things. You've broken lot of everything. You said arms and legs.
Both hands, both legs.
There's no magic solution, and we do say like this worked for me, this worked for me, this worked for me. But there's no one thing that says this kind of solved all my problems.
Oh, definitely.
Which I think a lot of people look for, right?
Yes.
I want this one thing.
That's only with the magic stick. That's all. That's
they want the fast fix. The fast fix is it's a great. That's what also a lot of diets and fitness programs are like. Lose your fat in 6 weeks and do this.
I don't understand these. I see the advertisements all the time. Like, oh, you're going to be fit in 30 days. I'm like, what? Or 6 weeks?
You will look fit in 30 days, but it's such an insane shock to your body that it's very hardly sustainable.
Exactly. It wouldn't. You can't maintain it for a really long time unless you continue, right?
Yeah, but also to continue in many times, it's not possible.
Yes.
Because you would eventually either starve yourself or something. So what they are promising you, that you will look fit in 30 days, that's true. But only
how?
in 30 days. Never again.
For one event, for your wedding, for your interview, for whatever it is, that date that you're going on, then that's done, that's it.
Yeah. So, fast fix is a very marketable thing.
Yeah, it reminded me of this guy who decided, I think 6 weeks before his wedding, that he starts to work out. And this guy wasn't a gym person or a sports person. And I remember him jumping into my Jeep, my old car, and I turned it on, and it's like, it's so loud. And so I was like, oh, this car is so noisy. That's kind of this kind of human being, like not used to dirty stuff, let's say.
Soft bitch. Right?
That's sheltered person,
And he's just like, he did it for 2 weeks, and then he just like start believing like this is not gonna happen. It's not like a click. It will just change.
You're absolutely right. And there's this old TEDx talk from an ex-special forces guy. He's talked about like purpose, process, love, right? And you have a purpose that drives you to want to do something, but you have to love the process. You have to enjoy it. And we used to do this a lot. And I remember a case with our mutual friend Simon, and he like recommended someone go buy a dog instead of joining up for the gym. And the logic of it, the person was so sedentary that walking a dog twice a day to go to the bathroom would be enough for her to be fitter and start to lose weight, right? Because she was on so far of the extreme that the small thing was enough. And a lot of the people, like you work for an office, right? You work in an office job. I work now in an office job. People look at me and they say, "Oh, how do I get fit? Oh, what do I do in the gym?" The first question is, do you enjoy going to the gym?
Exactly.
Like, is this for you?
Yes.
Maybe football is a better idea.
When I mention CrossFit, people will be like, "Oh man, I see the videos. It's so difficult." I'm like, it suits me.
Yeah, it's my love, my passion.
You. Yeah. Like going to the gym for bodybuilding, I don't like it. I get bored in it.
I always say that CrossFit, I believe that everybody can do CrossFit. but CrossFit is not
for everybody. 100%.
Correct.
Yeah.
100%.
Like,
Yeah, anyone can go and carry dumbbells and do stuff. I'm not going to talk about barbells, but I mean, and pull-ups, because not everybody can. Everybody can, but yeah, it doesn't suit everybody. Correct.
100%. And that you need to be able to, again, take ownership of the risk, take ownership of the reward, love the process.
Absolutely.
Similarly with like Crohn's and managing your diseases, you need to love, I need to love the process. I love the process of understanding my body, of experimenting with different things. And if I were to dwell on that, I think it would make me mentally unbearable for me to like live in that, oh, what if, or why has this been done to me? And a great exercise for me to see that is to see people who love their sports. And we say, you know, you can play football, you can play basketball, you can play cricket, you can do strength just as a way to prevent injury. You know, you can go meet a coach, they'll give you some strength and conditioning exercises so you don't get injured, but then do what you love.
there was the story we had with Anil before, right? Like he did sports his whole life. He got some insane injuries, but he only got to strength and conditioning, like training with me, only once he was like so far behind. He was like, I can't even enjoy what I want to enjoy. He couldn't enjoy golf as much as he wanted. He couldn't enjoy skiing as much as he wanted. And he really wanted to do these things. So he started to train for that. But to that point, no, like no way anybody 100%. Would get him to the gym.
And especially if you grow up in certain areas, like we give our families a lot of heat for like not having a healthy household. But for example, like my parents put in effort in what they thought was healthy, right? At least they put in effort. And strength and sports programs in the UAE back in 1990s, 1995 to the early 2000s didn't have a strength and conditioning element. So I played competitive basketball. I was horrible at it. Loved the sport, absolutely horrible. I was very good at swimming and loved the sport, and you know, competed in swimming, and I also did American football. In no area of these three, when I was there, is there a strength and conditioning element to the training, right? They only taught you to play basketball, to play American football, to swim. But now you go into any school, there's a gym, there's a gym program, there's a strength and conditioning coach, right? They're teaching the new generation that there's an element of prevention that you need to put in so that you can have the luxury of playing the sport that you want.
I don't remember I ever warmed up before playing football because there's the ball with go chasing.
There you go.
You know? Like with me and a dog, we're doing the same job. But the dog is ready and he runs behind. So and there's no stretching after that. That was the biggest mistake. This is why we have injuries, or we had injuries. But then later on, I realized, why do players do that? Like I watched football games and I'm like, oh, then it must be something important. And then my dad looked at me, you don't warm up? I'm like, no. Is that important? And then, you know, the rest happened.
Education, right? Not everybody's aware. Awareness is a big part of it. So you need to make sure that the people around you are aware. And, you know, I'm sure PE teachers and that the entire education system is developing with the years. And you're realizing that kids these days, with all of the supportive mechanisms, are becoming, you know, we have kids in the UAE that are going on to be professional athletes. Correct. You know, golf. I had a friend of mine in high school that went off to a golf scholarship.
Wow.
Nice.
And that's becoming more prevalent in the UAE with the more sophisticated programs. You're not going to have as many Anils and Najibs and Asils in the world in the future because, you know, they're going to be smarter at a younger age. I feel like I'm 65 saying all of this.
Well, you went through a lot of shit, you know.
Listen to Uncle Najib talk.
You 28, right?
28. Yeah, I always have to think about it because I lied about my age for so long when I was a coach. Like, nobody would take me seriously as a 19-year-old coach, right? So I always said, yeah, I'm 25. I think I was 25 for like 7 years. Because in CrossFit, right? CrossFit attracts a lot of like CEOs and C-suites, and these guys are very at the top of their game, right? Yeah. So they're not going to take orders from a 19-year-old, no matter how smart I was.
It happened to me in my job as well. When I meet those highly...
You can't shave, right? Because you
of course. I would look like a baby. I'm 39. So I'll enter their office and they look at me and they're like, who's this guy coming to talk to me about margins and numbers and contracts and stuff? But then when we sit down and we talk, he figures out this guy seems a bit matured than what I thought he was. And a little bit goes well, but the way they receive it, he looks young. So 19 and being a coach.
Yeah, it's a great challenge, by the way. And we look back at like you're grateful for the things that you go through, right? So being 19, I had to learn the science behind what I was talking about because I always need to back up every cue that I gave with the science. So I spent so much time with Bo, my old coach and mentor and a good friend of mine now, learning the science and getting the resources and getting an understanding. So when you cue this, it's for this reason.
Yes.
So if anybody questions you, you can go into, depth to get some credibility at least, right? And if I was a big guy with a big old beard and I looked like I was 35, which to this day I've been trying to grow a beard for the last 6 years, it's not working. If I looked bigger, I may have not gone through the need to learn all the back end and the back science.
I had it from a little bit different perspective, but basically going to the same point that whatever sport I did, I was very average, if not below average.
Yeah.
I needed to learn everything from the scratch. When I had athletics at school, like on my uni, I had athletics, swimming, gymnastics, and all possible martial arts. Everything what I learned, it was like, if there was a chance you will make a mistake, I was making the mistake. if there was a possible 7 mistakes on a breaststroke, I was doing 9 of them,
I'll make new mistakes.
I made a new mistake, a different combination of mistakes. And that, I believe, that made me to think about differently and also have the compassion with people who are not that great at moving. Because if you need to really debrief it to a absolute detail, then you start to understand the movement very differently.
Absolutely.
And then when you need to pass that knowledge or pass the, as a coach, it's coming way easier because you did all the mistakes. You can teach it again. You can understand it. You feel for people, and you know what worked for you, and you may try. You may start with that.
You said something awesome right now. You said feel for people, right? And this is. I tried to go into the corporate world multiple times, but I was the best coach I could have ever been after I tried to go into the corporate world the first time because I understood what they meant when they said, I don't have time to get up. Like, I don't have time to stretch. Like, 3 meetings will go past, 5 hours are done, I didn't even realize it. And you're sitting there and you're like, oh, okay, now I understand, right? Or I don't have time to eat. It's not so much they don't have time, that's how they were expressing it. But it was exactly what you're saying. You go through something and you start to be able to empathize with someone else, right? To go through the worst case, right? If it's not easy, you don't know.
Yeah, I was reading this very interesting thought a couple of days ago. It was some Instagram reel, I think, just a guy talking about it. How come that people are so willing to give their effort and time if they are giving the task, let's say from a job, from a boss, the job. Like they will do anything to meet the term at work. They will do anything to give me this list in 2 hours, give me this in, and they will just, because they need to. But they have super hard time wake up at 6 for themselves.
Yeah.
And it's just lack of respect for yourself.
I think I saw the video.
That you are not authority enough for yourself to actually make yourself important enough to follow your own rules.
Prioritize
That's
it.
fucking crazy.
Yeah.
The way he described it made so much sense. Like have so much low discipline towards yourself in comparison to the discipline you have to the others or to
100%
to the job you do.
I think Jordan Peterson as well. If you,
I love Jordan Peterson. He's so good.
He mentioned treat yourself. I think, and I'm really paraphrasing on this one, but treat yourself how you treat your dog. So if your dog gets sick, you make sure he gets his medicine. You make sure he eats. You make sure he gets his exercise. But when you get sick, I'll sit down and watch TV and eat Cheetos. I'll eat Ben and Jerry's when I'm sick. I don't care.
Regarding this dog analogy, what is the first thing a vet will ask you when you bring a sick animal?
How are you training it?
what are they eating?
What are they
eating?
Right?
Yeah.
When was the last time your doctor asked
you that? Yeah, very, very true. Very, very true. How are you eating? That's actually, I've never paid attention to that, but that's very, very true. It's interesting. People don't prioritize themselves first, and they look at it as I need to hustle today to make sure that I need to earn big bucks, right? But you can, if you look at like a prolonged perspective, 30 years down the line, do you want to be working? I want to work till the day I die. I love to work, right? Regardless what it is, whether it's a coach, whether it's
work and work.
Yeah. And I look at it from a perspective in that I want to work when I'm 60. I don't want to be able to work when I'm 60, right? And I don't want to do anything today. Like, I won't do an overnighter for anybody. Like, anything. Unless someone's going to die, I'm not staying up all night for something, right? I'm sure I can do the job. Like, I'll put in 12, 14 hours a day at work. That's fine. And I used to do it in the gym, 16, 18 hours a day. That's all right. But I'll still get my rest, right? I still prioritize that.
But also in the gym, it's a little bit different. Because yes,
the ups and downs.
1 hour of coaching, it's extremely demanding. But you're not doing 16 hours of coaching.
100%.
There are breaks in between. And that's why I was never really against just like, coach, go have a nap, come back, just like
cyclical, ups and downs.
Make it work, whatever works for you.
It's very hard, even from a corporate perspective, to see somebody be very linear in their performance, right? Everybody goes ups and downs. You don't want to have somebody that goes too far down and too far up, because then they're not sustainable, right? Same with the gym. You're never linear in the way that you progress in the gym, right? It's the same. I feel like because the main topic today was Crohn's.
No,
it's very similar.
Main topic today is you.
It's very similar in my journey today. My journey with Crohn's, in that it's very cyclical, right? You learn, you make mistakes, you learn again, you make mistakes, you learn again, you make mistakes, you try new things, and nothing, for me at least, nothing's been linear. Nothing's been constant progress at a slow pace, or like even plateauing. Plateauing is never forever. Very, very philosophical.
But when we
sentence,
except of charts, like nothing is linear. Like, I can't think about one single thing that is going as a linear progress. Even when you have something breaking, it's sometimes like it's very fine for a long time, and then it will break suddenly out of nowhere.
It's fragile.
There's nothing that you can really predict in a linear fashion. Like it's just 100%. Impossible.
100%.
It's unpredictability.
There's life has too many variables, and that's what it is. And I think a lot of lessons that we can take is, one of them is you got to enjoy the suffering, right? Life has a lot of lessons to teach you, and you got to be able to enjoy them, right?
It's like I like to think about it like levels.
When what
like
way?
You're progressing into the levels, right? Like you have this challenge. It's like I don't like world problems, right? Because it's just a challenge. Okay, so you solve this. Now let's move on. If the same challenge is coming, you probably didn't solve it right. There's probably something missing.
True.
So then you do it again.
And you develop yourself.
You learn along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I was very grateful for you guys having me and allowing me to share this the story that I've been through, and hopefully you'll have many more and more interesting stories to share in the future.
Well, you're welcome back here. Go forever.
From other people, other case studies.
Well, I mean, I hope you won't get any major events in your life. You'll need to make it another story.
Fingers crossed.
Thank you so much, Najib.
Thank you.
Najib.